Live from TKDS Sports Studios. Sports news, sports events, and more. This is TKDS Live. And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt, for the Sports Now Update Show.
Rise and shine, it is football time. Hello, football fans. Welcome to the Friday Night Recap Show. Jackson Lightcap alongside my co-host Matthew Pennington. Jonathan Snyder was supposed to be with us today. Unfortunately, he woke up and he did not feel good. Texted us early this morning in the chat. Actually, I think before either one of us may have been up, Matt. Just kidding. I know I was up. I was driving. But John, he texted us. He said that he came down with something last night, started feeling it, went to bed early, and just woke up not feeling well. So, unfortunately, Jonathan Snyder will not be able to join us here on this show today. Just Matt and I running the show. Back like old times, partner.
Yeah, good luck dealing with me for the next 3 hours. Just me alone. Usually John takes away some of the heat, but you guys get to deal with me a little bit more for this next 3 hours. So have fun dealing with it. So
Matt calling in from the comfort of his own home. I'm here at Central State University for the third consecutive week in a row. Central State University will end up playing Miles College, the reigning SIAC champions from a season ago. Later today at 1 o'clock, that game kicks off on the Marauder Sports Network. You can watch that on our sister station, maraudersports.tv. I'll have the call alongside former NFL linebacker Curtis Grant and former defensive back coach from right here at Central State. That's Corey Owens. We'll be live at 12:45. This is my last show that will be here on site. Matt, I get to go back next week to the comfort of my own home as well, so I'm certainly looking forward to it. But not as much as what I'm looking forward to what we have to talk about today. Week 10 is in the books. First off, hard to believe we're already at Week 10. It's hard to believe that the 2025 regular season for high school football has come to a close. And with that being said, a lot of teams that are going to be moving on to the playoffs, a lot of teams that are out, a lot of seniors who played their last football snap last night. Unfortunately for them, moving on from football going to be a tough thing to do. And then you also have a lot of seniors that are going to be playing at least one more week as the road to Canton will start next Friday night. Matt, we saw a lot of conference champions that were crowned yesterday, and either an outright title game or just a win and you get it. You win, you get a share. Those sort of things. A team loses, you get the title. There's a lot to talk about on this show. It's going to be a busy couple of hours.
yeah, and the funniest thing about Friday night being Week 10, Friday night last night, there's still games going on today. There's about, I think, roughly 10 games, maybe 11 to 12. It's somewhere in that range. But there's still a lot of playoff implications involved around those games left to go that are to be played today. So there's some games where, like, I think Massillon plays McKinley today. Both of those teams are already locked into the playoffs. It just determines what team is going to get what seed in their region and their division. But you've also got games like Aiken versus Hughes today. If Aiken wins, they're in the playoffs. If they lose, they're out. So there are big games when it comes to still making the playoffs that are going on today as well in high school football. So you talk about how crazy it is. We've got so much to talk about when it comes to standings, when it comes to matchups, when it comes to everything. There's still some change that we could see happen after today.
Yeah, there is, of course, some change that we could see happen. The OHSA will officially put out their brackets tomorrow. Again, we're going off the Joe Idle website, who is just phenomenal. Again, a huge shout-out to Joe Idle for helping us media folk, helping high school football teams know their situation. What he does is incredible for the state of Ohio. So once we get into talking about that, if you want to follow along, joeidle.com, that's the place to go. We're talking about the regions here in Southwest Ohio, which is 28, 24, 20, 16, 12, 8, 4, and 2 to the outlier of the multiple of 4. Matt, we have a couple of guests coming onto the show today. Coach Jonn Rapp from Indian Lake. Indian Lake clinching the playoffs, a first-round bye in Region 20. He'll be joining the show at 9:30. Our good friend from Peak of Ohio TV, WPKO Ken Keller, will be joining us at 10:15. And everybody's favorite, Jimmie Bell, at about 10:30. So it's a busy couple of hours, and typically we like to spread out the scores throughout the first couple hours of the show. Today's going to be a little bit different. We're going to fly through the scores. It's playoff time. And Matt, you mentioned there's a couple of games today that could impact a couple of regions, especially at the lower divisions. But for the most part, everything's already set in stone. For the most part, it's 95% set in stone. We'll let the scenarios of the teams that are playing today, where they sit and where teams around them could move based on the results from today and this afternoon. The first hour, we're going to go over scores. We're going to touch base on every conference. Matt, call me crazy. Typically, it takes us 2 hours to hit every conference in Southwest Ohio. We got to squeeze it in here in an hour. We're going to talk briefly about the conference champions, just kind of touch basing on the scores yesterday. And then not only just that, but we're going to then leave hour number 2 outside of that 15 minutes. We're talking to head coach Jonn Rapp for playoff talk. We're going to be talking playoff talk from about 9 to 9:30. We'll have that interview. Then 9:45 to 10:15, we'll talk about that. And then we have our 10 o'clock guest coming in, which is Ken Keller and Jimmie Bell. So, Matt, a lot to talk about. It's certainly going to be a fun couple of hours. And let's get right into it because, again, a lot to talk about. Our Thursday games, Belmont beating Ponens 38-22. Schroeder over Gamble Montessori 6-0. A defensive barn burner. That game was 0-0 heading into the final minute and a half. That's where Schroeder was able to get the first points of the game. Kyle Funk, David Marshall were there on the call for the TKDS Sports Network, and the report back to me, they said they thought they were going to be there all night long with double, triple, quadruple, anything past that overtime. Schroeder was able to pull it out in the final couple of minutes. In the MAC, Marion Local continues their winning streak to 73 games, just able to edge Coldwater 7-6. St. Henry versus Versailles. St. Henry gets the big win, 26-20. That effectively bumps Versailles outside of the playoffs, which is tough to believe considering they've been state titles and state victors just a couple of years ago. Anna over Parkway 35-0. Minster beats Fort Recovery 28-21. New Bremen over St. John's 42-7. Matt, going back to that Marion Local game, 73 consecutive wins for the Flyers. Coldwater and the Cavaliers, everybody knew that if the Cavaliers were going to get the Marion Local Flyers in years to come, this was their year to get the rivalry back in their favor. They were up early, or they were up later in the game. Marion Local with a fourth quarter touchdown to end up winning the game. And Matt, now we're starting to answer that question where Marion Local, a quote-unquote down year, they haven't beaten teams like 30, 40 points like we're used to them seeing. They are still finding ways to win. Their down year is a 10-0 season, which is absolutely absurd. Now you go into the OHSA playoffs. First couple rounds, I think it's going to be a lot easier than what they've faced in the MAC so far this season. But when you get deeper into the postseason, what is the ceiling for this Marion Local team? Is this a team that can continue to win and bring home their 5th consecutive state title to Maria Stein?
Well, when you have Coach Tim Goodwin at the helm of the team, you talk about their ceiling, what their potential is. It's having another 64-0 4 years, and you end up with an over 100. When you end up with a 128 game win streak, and you end up winning 4 more state titles in the next 4 years for your current freshman class that's in Marion Local right now. So, if you talk about ceiling and what could happen for this Marion Local team, I mean, they won last night against a very, very, very tough Coldwater team without their offense scoring a touchdown. It was 2 field goals. It was all special teams throughout the entire game. It was a kick return touchdown for Marion Local, 2 field goals for Coldwater throughout the game. So they found a way to beat Coldwater without their offense scoring a touchdown. So, yes, you don't want to really see that, especially when it comes to playoff time, and you kind of want your offense to be in rhythm, but we've talked about this being the worst Marion Local team we've seen, and they played close against quite a few teams throughout the season, but their record says 10-0, and their seeding in the playoffs says number 1 seed in Region 28. So you can say, well, they don't look as good, well, this, that. If they don't look as good and they're 10-0 at the end of the regular season, Marion Local is still flying high. Win streak is up to 74 games after last night. So I think it's safe to say, you talk about what's the ceiling for the Flyers. Another state title is the ceiling. Like I said, I say state title. I'm thinking a couple more state titles in the next couple of years for Marion Local. What's the ceiling for this team? The floor, it all depends on who they end up playing in the playoffs. Obviously, they got the first round bye, so they don't have to worry about a first round playoff game. But you've still got possibilities of playing some tough teams later down the line. I mean, we could see a Marion local St. Henry game in this Region 28 championship game, and once all is said and done. And that game was back and forth. Marion local had to come from behind in that week 3 game to take down St. Henry earlier on in the season, winning 21-14. So we could see, realistically, Marion local lose a potential game in the playoffs. Crazy as that sounds with how good Marion local's been, we could see them lose a game in the playoffs later down the line this season. But ceiling for the Flyers, they're going back to Canton. They're winning another state title. That is totally within the realm of possibility. And if I'm being completely honest with how tough the MAC conference is, we talk about it year in and year out, how tough the conference is. I got the same feeling that I've had multiple times when it comes down to this Marion local team. If they make it out of Region 28, out of all the potential MAC teams that they have to deal with and face off against, Minster, New Bremen, Fort Recovery, St. Henry, all of those are MAC schools. All of them, Fort Recovery is the only one with a question mark. Pretty much all those teams are in the playoffs. Like I said, Fort Recovery is the only one with a question mark. They're currently sitting at the 12th spot, but there's a situation that could happen with one of Manchester's opponents that bumps Fort Recovery out of the playoffs. But you still got a lot of MAC teams and a lot of good teams outside of those MAC schools that are in the playoffs for Region 28. So if Marion local makes it out of Region 28, it's tough to say there's going to be teams that are going to be able to beat them with how good that defense is. I mean, they held Coldwater to 2 field goals yesterday. So the ceiling for me for Marion local, another state title. The floor for me is making it all the way to the Region 28 championship game and losing to St. Henry. That's what I could see happening in Region 28.
And Matt, kind of touching base on what you just said, I think if you take a look at Division 7 as a whole, I think the best team to have a chance of knocking out Marion local is one of those MAC schools because it's familiar. And now you play Marion local. They have the longest winning streak in all of the United States. Actually, I think all of North America. Don't quote me on that. I think that the only couple of teams that may give them fits are McDonald and Fairport Harding, both of them coming out of Region 25. But even then, I don't see them giving fits. The one team I was looking at and trying to see could they match up is Kirtland. Kirtland's in Division 6. Marion local's in Division 7. Kirtland's been that team that over the past couple of years has been it's been a dogfight. Marion local has been able to win, but it's been a dogfight. So when you look at that, Kirtland being in Division 6, Marion local being in Division 7 certainly helps out the Flyers. Matt, they went through the regular season. They went through the MAC. You look at the MAC compared to everyone else, this is going to be a team I think is going to be hoisting the Division 7 state championship trophy in Canton just in a few weeks. When I say a few weeks, I mean about 5 or 6 weeks from now. Matt, in the Three Rivers Conference, Milton Union over Bethel 35-31. Lehman Catholic beating Covington 48-34. Northridge beats Troy Christian 52-7. Miami East over Riverside 14-10. With that win, Miami East will clinch the Three Rivers Conference. Lehman Catholic will clinch the number 2 spot with their win over Covington. Covington finishes with bronze in the Three Rivers. Time for a break. When we return, we'll talk about some more Dayton schools right here and their scores and how the conference is shaped up when we return on the flip side of this break. You're watching the Friday Night Recap Show. It's all powered by TKDS Sports.
Looking for future leaders we can believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Ohio. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It includes learning to listen, accepting responsibility, being a good role model, and it's about respect. The result, it transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
I'm Kirk Herbstreit, and today I'm eating Raising Cane's.
Herbstreit's in the drive-thru again. Oh, hey, Kirk. What can I get you today?
I want a solid bench of 4 chicken fingers that are real difference makers. Crinkle cut fries with dynamic ridge patterns. Texas toast and cane sauce with an air of smugness that comes from knowing you're the best. Now back to you, Todd.
So the usual.
Make Raising Cane's part of your game day lineup. One love.
When life gets messy, make it sweet. Only Dirty Dough delivers maximum flavor from the inside-out layers, mix-ins, and gooey fillings. No filters, no fuss, just real cookies for real life. Every week, a rotating lineup of handcrafted flavors. Join the loyalty program, earn points on every purchase, redeem for free cookies, and get a cookie on your birthday. Dirty Dough, it's what's inside that counts.
Looking to elevate your brand with quality custom printing? Red Ball Specialty Printing in Springfield, Ohio. Family owned and dedicated to attention, quality, and service. We customize everything from shirts, drinkware, pens, awards, and more. Whether 50 pieces or 5,000, we deliver color crisp, branding brilliant. From promotional apparel to recognition awards, we're your one-stop for impactful merchandise. Visit rbspdesignschipley.com or call 937-215-0740 today. Red Ball, you think it, they ink it.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we welcome you back here to the Friday Night Recap Show. Week 10 is in the books. Let's dive back in to some score updates. In the Central Buckeye Conference, Benjamin Logan over Shawnee, 40-13. Indian Lake beating Northwestern 49-6. Jonathan Alder destroying Bell Fountain and destroying all of Bell Fountain's playoff hopes this season as well, winning that one 42-7. London blanking Kenton Ridge. Kenton Ridge out of the 12-team playoff now. Graham over North Union 39-25. Urbana will be able to edge Tecumseh 30-28. They had a shot going into last night, but just unfortunately for them, did not get the quality win that they needed to get the maximum amount of points, and Urbana, the Hill Climbers, are out of this year's playoffs as well. In the OHC, Greenview over Catholic Central 39-7. West Jefferson blanking Fairbanks 49-6. Greenon over Madison Plains 42-12. Northeastern beating Triad 42-0. Cedarville over Southeastern 43-3. Mechanicsburg over West Liberty Salem. And Matt, we're going to talk more about this moving forward when we're talking about that region. But the Division 5 Region 20, West Liberty Salem currently right now is in as the 12 seed, but they could be affected by a Saturday game that could eliminate them.
Yeah, and it's all going to come down to, I think, don't quote me on this, but you take a look at Purcell Marion, right? If you're looking on Joe Idle's website right now, you would see in Region 20 that you've got West Liberty Salem sitting at the 12 spot, says their possible seeding is from 12 to out. Purcell Marion, their possible seeding, they're currently sitting in the 15 spot. Their seeding is 12 or out. The way that I see this working out and the way I see this shaping up for Purcell Marion, Hughes plays Aiken. I talked about Aiken and their chances of making the playoffs. With a win today, Aiken makes it in. With a loss, they're out in Region 8, so Hughes is the team that faces off against Aiken today, so Hughes still has a game. If Hughes wins, Purcell Marion has a win over the Big Red, so that would possibly give Purcell Marion more points when it comes down to their final point total at the end of the season. And then you take a look at the fact that CHCA, or not CHCA, it says there's a score in for CHCA Summit Country Day, but I thought that game was supposed to be played today. I don't know for sure, but it's saying that CHCA ended up coming out with a win over Summit Country Day, so the points from that are not going to happen, but the Hughes-Aiken game that I was just mentioning, there's a possibility that if Hughes wins, that's going to be a bump in points for them when it comes to how much a win versus them is going to be worth. So Purcell Marion, if Purcell Marion's hoping that Hughes gets a win today, that's what Purcell Marion is hoping for. If Hughes can get a win, that should allow Purcell Marion to get more points off of the win that Hughes has, or that Purcell Marion has over Hughes with that 22-14 win. So that's how I see it being possible for Purcell Marion to jump West Liberty Salem, because it says the max amount of points that Purcell Marion can get is 8.89. The current amount of points that West Liberty Salem has, and they can't get any more, is 8.8. 8. So there is a possibility for Purcell Marion from the 15 spot all the way down in 15 with whatever happens in that Hughes-Aiken game to jump all the way up to that 12 spot. So that's why we don't have right now Region 20 locked in that 12 spot and that 15 spot still being up for grabs.
We'll talk about that here in a little bit. The DPS, Dayton Christian over Thurgood Marshall, 46-0. Meadowdale over Dunbar. That was for a DPS title. Both teams were undefeated in conference heading into that game. Atmosphere was great. Meadowdale, back-to-back DPS champions with the win over Dunbar by a final score of 19-13. Congratulations to the Lions for going back-to-back. In the Miami Valley League, Butler beating Fairborn 30-9. Piqua over Sydney 28-20. Troy over Greenville 40-6. Xenia beating Stebbins 39-12. Tippecanoe well off over West Carrollton 77-6. Tippecanoe will clinch a first-round bye within their region, and they also, with that, will end a perfect 10-0 season. They are your Miami Valley League champions. Kudos to Xenia. Xenia winning their division in the Miami Valley League. That is the Valley Division, but Tippecanoe is your MVL Conference champions. In the GWalk, Fairmont over Beaver Creek 14-7. That will clinch a playoff spot for the Firebirds. Springboro over Miamisburg 35-7. Springfield beating Northmont 56-7. Wayne over Centerville 47-27. Wayne, after that devastating loss a week ago to Beaver Creek, affected their seeding a little bit. In fact, that game is what's holding them out of having a first-round bye this week as well. So Wayne, they did not like that loss. They took it out on Centerville. Centerville eliminated from the playoffs. They are that GWalk school that misses the playoffs that we have been talking about all year long. And again, this just goes to show you that every game counts. We mentioned back in week 3, because of how GWalk was out of conference, there was going to be one team you would have never guessed missed the playoffs. Fairmont 5-5, Centerville 4-6. Fairmont beat Centerville. If Centerville wins that game and you flop the scores, it's very well possible that we see Centerville in and Fairmont out.
I would even argue seeing Centerville being so low when it comes to the amount of points they have, if we would have seen Centerville take down Fairmont, it very well could have been possible that we would have seen both not make it into the playoffs. So I'm not saying that would have been a guarantee because of don't know how many points that would have given Centerville, and don't know how many points Fairmont truly benefited and gained from that game, seeing as how Centerville is the 16 seed. So I was talking about the Aiken Hughes game that comes down, and that's going to help out Purcell Marion or not. It matters how good your opponent is at the end of the regular season and how good of a win it would end up being. So I don't know truly how many points Fairmont gained from their win against Centerville. And if Centerville would have taken down Fairmont, we would have seen both of those teams sit at 4-6. So it would have been interesting to see where everything would have ironed out and who would have ended up being either in the playoffs, or we could have seen both of them not make the playoffs if Centerville would have beat Fairmont. But we're living in the reality where Fairmont was able to come away with a win, close win, but come away with a win, and they're in the playoffs and Centerville's out. And like you said, we talked about it, I think it was around week 4 to week 5 when we started seeing all the points and everything start ironing out, and we started seeing all the GWalk teams down at the bottom of Region 2, where we were saying one team that is usually a surefire going to make the playoffs, and not just make the playoffs, but be better than a 10 seed, isn't going to make it. And Centerville's all the way down to that 16 spot, so it ended up happening. It's insane to say that Centerville is all the way down in the 16 spot and not in the playoffs. Granted, last year they would have been in since we had 16 teams last year, but we're down to 12 teams. And even if we did have 16, I would have called you crazy if you would have said Centerville would have been the 16 seed going into the first round of the playoffs. So an absolutely crazy year when it comes down to the GWalk. And then not just Centerville being down at 16, but Beaver Creek being a game ahead of them, being 4-6 on the year. Centerville was 3-7, and Beaver Creek being the 15 seed in Region 2. It's safe to say the GWalk was just absolute chaos this year.
And I will go ahead and touch base on this as well. I think a lot of people forget that Centerville was the Region 2 champions last year. They went to the state Final Four. They topped over Wayne. Matt, you and I were there. We had the opportunity to call that game at Welcome Stadium. It was a great game. And Centerville go from regional champions, a Final Four appearance for Division I football, to now not making the playoffs in a 3-7 season. That just goes to show you how quick things can change when there's as much turnover as it is. We've seen it in Columbus as well. Olentangy Liberty won the Division I state title, lost 33 seniors, started off the year 0-3. A lot of people were saying, well, sorry, Liberty's just not the same. They're not making it. They go on a 7-game winning streak. They're 7-3 now, Matt. Things just can change within a snap of a finger. And that's just how things go, and that's what makes this sport, and especially in the state of Ohio, so special. In the Southwestern Buckeye League, Carlisle over Eaton 35-16. Edgewood beating Monroe 42-7. Brookville back in the win column over Franklin 28-7. Oakwood over Middletown Madison 49-14. Bellbrook with a win over Ross 19-0. That gets them into the playoffs. Valley View blanking Waynesville 48-0 to claim your Southwestern Buckeye League title. Last but not least, in the GCL Co-Ed, McNicholas over Baden 17-10. Hold that thought. We'll talk about that in a minute. Alter over CJ 42-0. Fenwick over Carroll 35-8. That was a much-needed win for McNicholas. And hey, McNicholas, Rockets, Merry Clinchmas, you're in the playoffs.
Yeah, it wasn't just the fact that it was a clinching of the playoffs, but if I'm not mistaken, we take a look at McNicholas in the last 3 weeks of the regular season. I think around week 7, they were around the 4 to 5 spot in region 12. So they were sitting very nice when it came down to the playoffs and when it came down to their chances of potentially being a home team. They lose week 8, 12-0 to Alter. I don't really think that did too much when it came to their points and when it came to their standings and how affected they were. They might have dropped down to the 7th spot. Then they lose to Fenwick, 16-14. That dropped them all the way down to the 11th spot before last night, if I'm not mistaken. So that hurt McNicholas. And then they had a matchup against Baden for their final game of the regular season. It wasn't a if you lose, you're out, but it was a win, you're in for McNicholas last night. So the fact that they were able to come away with the win against Baden, not only is it a big win when it comes down to locking them into the playoffs, but it shot them all the way up to the 8th seed. They're a home team for the playoffs now after that win against Baden. So when it felt like their backs were against the wall, everything was going against them after losing to Alter and then losing to Fenwick in week 9, McNicholas needed a win to just lock themselves into the playoffs against Baden last night. And not only did they win and lock themselves into the playoffs against Baden, they had everything fall their way to make themselves a home team when it comes to the first round of the playoffs. So McNicholas, we talk about the highs and lows and the roller coaster effect that we see throughout high school football, and you talked about the highs and lows from Centerville from a year ago to now. Well, McNicholas pretty much went through that. When it comes down to the home team for the playoffs, they went through that over the past couple weeks of the regular season. So McNicholas, like I said, I think they were around the 5 seed a couple weeks ago, dropped down to around the 6 or 7 after losing to Alter. Alter's the 6th seed in their region, then lost to Fenwick, and that was oh no, we might not make the playoffs now, because like I said, if they would have lost to Baden last night, I think they were 11 seed or out was their projection if they lost to Baden. So it was a must-win game for McNicholas last night. They still could have made it with a loss, but they were a win-you're-in situation. And not just was it a win and you're in, it was a win and get a home game for McNicholas. So the Rockets are really, really, really happy with that win last night, because now they get to host a playoff game and not have to go on the road to face off against a tough team. Could have been Alter, could have been Miami Trace that they had to deal with as a road game for the first round of the playoffs. So McNicholas, that was a massive win for the Rockets last night.
Matt, I'll tell you another team that is super excited about that McNicholas win last night. That's Alter, because with the Alter Knights winning, with Baden losing, Alter now will get a share of that GCL title with Baden. Baden did beat them a couple weeks ago, and I know that we go by the co-champions. I don't like that. Can we just go back? Can we go back to head-to-head tiebreakers? Is that too bad? I mean, maybe I'm getting a little out of line here, but for me, if you win the head-to-head tiebreaker, you should be the champion. It's almost as if you lost the game, but you're still getting a co-championship. It's almost as if it's the whole participation trophy. Either way, co-champions. And I even had this same rant and same conversation last season when it was Fairmont and Centerville in the GWAC. We've had this conversation so many times over the past couple of years. It just so happened that this year it is lined up to be in the GCL Co-Ed. It's not anything against Baden or Alter.
Yeah, I can see that argument. I completely agree with you on the fact that if you are tied with your overall conference record and you beat the team you're tied with, I think that should give you the tiebreaker over that team. I completely agree with you on that.
Granted,
I mean,
if you don't play, because there are some conferences where not everybody plays each other. If that happens, co-champs, 100% okay with that.
Yeah, I can agree with that too. I mean, we see it when it comes to college football and conference championship week. I mean, we see teams, we see conferences, we see times where you might have 3 teams in conference that are 8-1 in conference or 7-1 in conference, but 2 of the 3 teams beat that third team. So that third team doesn't get a chance to be in the conference championship game. Granted, it's tough to have a conference championship game played between 3 teams. I don't know how you would have that work out, but we see it in multiple different sports. Here's a better situation. You have undefeated conference team, and then you got 2 teams that are 1-loss in conference. So those 2 teams that are 1-loss played each other in the regular season. The team that had that 1 loss, or the team with the 1 loss that beat the other 1-loss team, they make it into the conference championship game, and that team that had the win gets to go on to the conference title and face off against the undefeated team in conference. So I think you should determine outright who the conference champion is if we have a scenario like we're talking about right now with Baden having beat Alter, and we know how that matchup went between those 2 teams. So yeah, I agree. I think we're obviously gonna have to call Alter and Baden co-champions of the GCL Co-Ed. That's how things pan out. That's how things go when it comes to high school football. But Baden, you're my true GCL Co-Ed champs.
Baden, you're my true love. We're time for a break. It's time for a break. You're watching the Friday Night Recap Show powered by TKDS Sports.
Central State University is home.
We on the way. Yeah, it's my time. Who I'm gonna be when I'm in the limelight. Shining in the dark like I was a nightlight. It's my time, yeah. I went from the back to front. Last to one, future looking like magnanimous. We on the way, no doubt. We on the way, no doubt.
For God,
For Central,
for State.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season, it's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference is anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is coming this fall. Only on HBCU Go.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
When every second counts and every drop matters, you don't settle for ordinary. You power up with Power Mist Racing Fuels. Trusted by champions, engineered for victory. From drag strips to dirt tracks, Power Mist delivers explosive performance, cleaner burns, and unmatched horsepower. Nitro, alcohol, methanol, gasoline blends. Whatever you race, we've got the fuel to ignite your edge. Power Mist Racing Fuels, born to burn, built to win.
The year was 1907. The Cubs won the World Series and the Ford Model R hit the assembly line. While here in Ohio, school administrators came together to form the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One thing that hasn't changed since 1907 is the dedication of the OHSAA to education-based athletics in Ohio. School sports teach responsibility, sportsmanship, and life lessons that stay with students long after their playing days are over. The OHSAA seeks to prepare students not for the next level of sport, but for the next level of life.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we are getting set. As we are continuing on, let's continue to talk about some scores. Let's now go into the GCL South. Within the GCL South, Elder over De La Salle, Michigan, 35-7. Moeller beating Muskegon, Michigan, 56-13. LaSalle over Mount Healthy, 54-7. And St. Xavier Life Christian Academy out of Virginia. That game was canceled because Life Christian Academy could not field enough players for a team. So an extra bye week for Elder. And Matt, now this is an interesting story because Elder, keep in mind, they have a first-round bye in the OHSA playoffs, so they are actually going to have 2 weeks off between games. So interesting. I was thinking about St. Xavier. My apologies, but St. Xavier with that extra week off. In the Greater Miami Conference, Hamilton over Coleraine, 23-10. Lakota East beats Lakota West, 42-28. A big win for the Thunderhawks. Mason over Sycamore, 48-6. Fairfield beating Oak Hill, 17-0. Middletown, after that tough loss a week ago against Hamilton, bouncing back and taking down Princeton. 14-6 is the final in that score. And Matt, that will clinch Middletown, the number 1 seed in Region 2. What an incredible win by Middletown. Princeton already clinched the GMC title the week before, so therefore Princeton is still your GMC champions.
Yeah, that win for Middletown, when it comes down to what I was talking about last week for the Middies, whether or not that game against Hamilton in Week 9 was going to be something that was going to not hold them down, but be something that they kept thinking about and kept looking at and kept thinking about, man, we turned the ball over 5 times. We only lost that game by 4 points, by 1 possession, and we turned the ball over 5 times, and Hamilton didn't turn the ball over, or they turned the ball over once, but it's a -4 when it comes to the turnover margin, and Hamilton scored all 14 points in the fourth quarter. So that game for Middletown was a tough pill to swallow Week 9, but I think it's safe to say, Jonn was talking about, we saw Ohio State lose to Michigan in the last week of the regular season, and they used that as fuel to the fire for their playoff run. I think Middletown might be thinking the same thing when it comes down to that loss to Hamilton. Facing off against Princeton Week 10, yes, the Hamilton game was in the final week of the regular season, but that was a road game against Princeton. Granted, Princeton wasn't at their own home field since there's obviously work being done at the field, but Middletown was able to get a win, an 8-point win against a team that in Princeton, their only loss was to the juggernaut that is Moeller going into last night, and that was a Week 1 game. Princeton was undefeated in conference. They were 8-0. They had been on an 8-game win streak. They were 8-0 in conference. Like you said, locked in the GMC title. There was no way that any team could end up taking that and stripping that title away from them. So that's the other thing you got to think about if you're Middletown. You got to use that game last night against Princeton. That's got to start the ball rolling when it comes to what Middletown is going to be able to do in the playoffs. They have a bye week in the first round with being the number 1 seed, so it's going to be a little bit before we continue to see that ball roll down the hill for Middletown. But that win last night, all the confidence in the world, but you talk about things that you might be a little bit upset about. I think Middletown's going to be, yes, they're going to use that game against the Big Blue as not as confidence, but as a kind of a motivator to, hey, we can do a lot better than what we did against Hamilton. And they proved that last night with their win against Princeton. But they've also got to be having the thought in the back of their mind that if we win that game against Hamilton, we're split the GMC title. So that's another thing that shouldn't really be on the minds of Middletown. After that win against Princeton, they need to look ahead to the playoffs and who they might end up facing in the second round. So that's, in my opinion, what Middletown's got to have in their mind. Either their game is going to be against Fairmont or Lebanon. That should be the 8 versus 9 matchup, and that should be one of those two teams that they have to face off against. So they've got to keep their minds ready and keep their focus ready for their playoff run. But Middletown, that was a huge win last night. Talking about getting confidence, talking about getting the ball rolling. The Middies, not that they needed that win last night, but you talk about getting the ball rolling and getting yourself ready for the playoffs. Last night was the game to do it, and they did it.
A big win for the Middies, and the Middies will have a first-round bye, so extra time to celebrate that. What a season from Middletown this year. In the Eastern Cincinnati Conference, Anderson over Loveland 42-7. Kings beats Winton Woods 42-14. Kings over Walnut Hills 42-14. Winton Woods over Lebanon 31-10. Lebanon turning over the ball, I believe it was 5 times in that second half. It was a close game all the way throughout, and Winton Woods puts a stumping on them in that second half. Turpin over Milford 36-19. Little Miami blanking West Claremont 42-0. Anderson has already won that ECC title. In the Miami Valley Conference, Cincinnati Country Day 51, Clark Montessori 20, North College Hill over Norwood 34-6, Roger Bacon beating Purcell Marion 21-19, CHCA over Summit Country Day 36-7. Couple of final conferences here. One more before we take a break. We'll go to the CHL. Taylor over Finneytown 32-14. Indian Hill over Reading 37-0. And that will complete an undefeated in-conference season for Indian Hill. Indian Hill is your CHL champions. Marymount over Madera 24-14. Wyoming beating Deer Park 42-22. Time for a break. When we return, we'll talk about the SWAC, the CMAC, and the SBAAC. That's all coming up on the flip side of this commercial break. And then at the top of the hour, we will look at the playoff brackets and see who's in, who's out, and who is still waiting for their games to play today. That and more, it's all coming up next here on the TKDS Sports Network.
In communities where leaders are forged and legacies are born, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference proudly celebrates the accomplishments of current and former students. From the playing field to the boardroom, they are the next generation of entrepreneurs, doctors, and executives.
Leaders rise here. Leaders rise here.
Leaders rise here.
Leaders rise here.
Looking for future leaders we can believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Ohio. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It includes learning to listen, accepting responsibility, being a good role model, and it's about respect. The result, it transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. This message presented by the Ohio High School Athletic Association and the Ohio Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association.
Hey, really appreciate you treating us to Canes today, Todd.
Hey, anything from my favorite TV personality. Oh, and Kirk Herbstreit.
Hey, I'm used to it. Hey, you know Canes is our favorite pregame meal. Nothing like kicking off game day with hand-battered cooked-to-order chicken fingers and cane sauce.
Speaking of the game, we gotta get back soon. What's the holdup?
Yeah, what's that noise?
Hello? Hello, anyone there?
We're gonna miss the tailgate.
This is the tailgate.
Raising Cane's chicken fingers.
One love.
Looking to elevate your brand with quality custom printing? Red Ball Specialty Printing in Springfield, Ohio. Family owned and dedicated to attention, quality, and service. We customize everything from shirts, drinkware, pens, awards, and more. Whether 50 pieces or 5,000, we deliver color crisp, branding brilliant. From promotional apparel to recognition awards, we're your one stop for impactful merchandise. Visit rbspdesignschipley.com or call 937-215-0740 today. Red Ball, you think it, they ink it.
When life gets messy, make it sweet. Only Dirty Dough delivers maximum flavor from the inside-out layers, mix-ins, and gooey fillings. No filters, no fuss, just real cookies for real life. Every week, a rotating lineup of handcrafted flavors. Join the loyalty program, earn points on every purchase, redeem for free cookies, and get a cookie on your birthday. Dirty Dough, it's what's inside that counts.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Matt, let's get into some CMAC scores, but before we do that, just another reminder, folks, this show is sponsored by Red Ball Specialty Printing. You think it, they ink it. Visit them off Deer Road in Springfield for all your custom apparel needs. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, One Love. Do game day the Cane's way. Whether you're tailgating or cheering from the couch, fuel your crew with Raising Cane's. Raising Cane's Chicken Fingers, One Love, and Dirty Dough Cookies. The PAL location, visit them off Sawmill Parkway to get that sweet truth craving that we all want and we all desire. Let's go on to the CMAC, just a couple of scores. We've already talked about a couple of CMAC games above. Withrow over Western Hills, 48-0. Taft beating Woodward, 47-0. Taft has completed the perfect 10-0 season. They are your CMAC champions, and according to Mike Dyer later last night, he added up everything, and out of their 7-game shutout streak, they have outscored their opponents 350-0. The last time the shutout streak started back on September 12th. The last time Taft allowed a single point to cross the goal line or through the goalpost was back on September 5th. Matt, again, it's one thing to go on a 7-game winning streak. It's one thing to go on a 10-game winning streak. How about a 7-game shutout streak where they outscored their opponents 350-0? Again, that's all from Mike Dyer.
For me, it's not just that. How about the fact that they have only allowed 34 points? Out of every single game they've played, they've allowed 34 points all season. And 27 of those points came in their overtime victory against Alter. And Alter is an insanely good program and an insanely good team. Another thing you got to think about when it comes to this Taft team. When it comes to their region, they're in Region 16. They're the 4 seed. You don't know what Taft has in their arsenal? It kind of explains and describes the fact that they've had 350 points to 0 scored against, points for to points against in their shutout streak. You take a look at future talent, potential college receivers, potential college talent on teams. They've got the number 5 receiver in the 2028 class in McMullen. So this Taft team, if they can get McMullen involved, in my opinion, it doesn't matter who they're playing in the playoffs. If they can get the offense rolling, an insanely talented player on that team and an insanely talented team. I mean, take a look at the scores. I mean, 69-0, 51-0, 39-0 against 8-2 Withrow, a team that's 2 divisions ahead of them. 41-0 against Hughes. 58-0 against Western Hills. Western Hills is a Division I team. Granted, Western Hills has struggled this season, but 58-0 was the final score of that game. And then, another Division II team in Aiken, a team that might make the playoffs if they take down Hughes today, 45-0 in Week 9, and then won last night, 47-0. Oh, and then let's go to their Week 1 game against Jeffersonville out of Indiana, 37-0 in that game. Let's go to their game against CJ. Yes, CJ struggled, 56-7. This Taft team, they're the 4 seed. But if they can keep the offensive rhythm going, this Senators team, mark my word, if they keep the offense going, they should have a first round bye. It looks like they're locked into that 4 spot. CHCA Valley View might flip for that 2 and 3 spot, but Taft looks like they're locked into that 4 spot. The only problem I could see, taking a look at their potential matchup, they might have Clinton Massey to deal with in their first game, which It's tough to say anybody's really been able to stop that Clinton Massey run attack so far this season outside of Tri-Valley. Tri-Valley ended up beating him 35-0, but that's Clinton Massey's only loss on the year. But it's safe to say if this Taft offense can keep the rhythm going and keep getting the ball to McMullen, they're going to be a team that could turn some heads and could make some noise from that 4 spot in the playoffs. But with the way they've played this year, if they can't get McMullen involved, it's going to be a tough sled for Taft to push for a potential win in the playoffs. So this Senators team, I mean, you take a look at their scoring, you take a look at how good that offense has been. If they can keep that momentum going, they're a team that can turn some heads and make some noise in the playoffs. But they've got to keep that offense going. If they can, Taft is a team you got to watch out for. If a team with a strong enough defense faces off against them, what I'm saying could mean nothing, and Taft might end up being knocked out in their first game if they end up facing off against Clinton Massey, if they can't get their offense going. So you got a tale of two tapes when it comes to Taft. If the offense is flowing and the offense is working, good luck. If you're able to stop the offense, you're going to be sitting pretty well, and you're going to be loving the way your team's playing if they can just slow down that Taft Senators offense.
Into the SBAAC, Clinton Massey, the team you just mentioned, Matt, winning against Batavia 56-14. Williamsburg over Bethel Tate 37-0. Claremont Northeastern beating up on East Clinton 61-6. New Richmond over Wilmington 39-13. Goshen beating Western Brown by 7 in a shootout 49-42. That game will clinch a playoff spot for Goshen and the Warriors. What a season for Goshen, finishing at 7-3 after just a 3-win team a year ago. Your two champions in that league, Clinton Massey, 4-0. They win the American Division. Williamsburg wins the National Division, also at 4-0. And Matt, those two teams did not meet during the regular season, so therefore, co-champions. And, Matt, we have about 5 minutes or so before we move into our 9 o'clock hour. At 9 o'clock, we're going to start talking about some of the playoff brackets across the state of Ohio, especially right here in this Southwest region. At 9, we're going to look at Division 7, Region 28, Division 6, Region 24. 9:15, we're going to look at Division 5, Region 20, Division 4, Region 16. We have our interview with our coach today. That is Jonn Rapp from Indian Lake at 9:30. And then at 9:45, we're going to talk about Region 12, Division 3, Division 2, Region 8, and then our Division 1 regions at the top of the 10 o'clock hour. So we flew through scores today because we want to get to talking the playoffs. But a couple of minutes before we have to take our final break. And Matt, that was meant on purpose, actually, because there's been a lot that has gone on in the state of Ohio at the high school level over the past couple of days, including, how about an NIL case? NIL, is it becoming a factor here in the state of Ohio? Well, there was an emergency vote on it, and it certainly does look like it could be coming to the table. Matt, your thoughts on it?
For me, with the way everything has been going, I can understand there being NIL money involved in high school sports, but at the end of the day, I would agree with it if we still keep it a thing that it's hard for players to transfer to different schools. That's the way I look at NIL in high school sports. If we make it to where players can just transfer to schools because of local businesses liking that player, and local businesses are essentially paying for that player's family to move to said town or said city to play for said team. If that ends up being the case, in my opinion, absolutely zero chance that NIL should be allowed in high school sports, because we already see it, and we've seen Mo Douglas be pretty vocal about it. Private schools facing off against public schools in playoffs, the private schools end up faring a lot better when it comes down to being playoff teams, when it comes to potentially being state champions, when it comes to the dominance of St. Ed's not too long ago in Division I, St. X being state champions not too long ago in Division I, Moeller always being in the conversation for being a team that might make a state championship run, make it to Canton. Yes, Olentangy Liberty won it last year, but take a look at the 4 previous state champions in Division I prior to Olentangy Liberty winning it last year. It was St. Ed's, St. Ed's, St. Ed's, St. Ed's, and then they'd face off against pretty much Springfield every single year, it felt like, when it came down to state championship teams in Division I. For me, when it comes down to NIL deals and when it comes down to all of that, you cannot have it become a scenario where teams essentially, it's not the teams paying for the players, but it's the communities paying for the players. That cannot be a thing. I'm gonna put my hand on the table and just say it. That cannot be a thing when it comes to high school sports, because if that ends up becoming a thing, smaller schools are gonna be hurt by it. Yes, smaller schools don't have to play against Division I teams. We don't see Marion Local, or we don't see teams like Minster facing off against St. Ed's for a state title. That doesn't happen. We've got divisions for a reason. But it's going to have, in my opinion, negative impacts if we have communities paying for players, basically. I already see it as a problem in college football when it comes to NIL money and when it comes to the way that whole system works. If it comes down to communities and businesses paying for players to move to their town to play football, I don't think it's going to be a good thing.
And
that's the way I look at it.
And, you know, real quick before I make my point, and I know we got to take a break here in about a minute or so, there's another thing that we need to mention that's been going on across the state of Ohio in high school football as well. If you just saw me jump, it's because they just tested the PA system here at Central State and McPherson Stadium, and it was very, very loud, to say the least. And it caught me off guard. There was no prior warning, and it wasn't a check, 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 check. It was a let's blare some music. So it scared me. If you saw me jumping in my seat, that's what it was. I thought that I see them setting up on the field right in front of me, but I didn't know anybody else was up here with me testing the PA system. I'm in a separate box. Matt, I completely agree with you. I think that athletes at any level, I think that if they, I think at any level, I think if a local business comes to them and says, hey, we want you to star in a commercial or be a spokesperson for us, or, you know, like come in and host an interview or something like that, I think that they should be paid for it because they are spending their time at any level. I think that they should be able to be compensated for that. But the transfers, that's what I just mentioned was what it was originally destined to be at the collegiate level, and now it has completely changed how things operate. Now, I will go ahead and say this. The OHSAA has done a very, very good job at biting down and putting strict transfer rules into place. So, there's going to be a catch-22. If this is allowed, those transfer rules are going to get stricter. The OHSAA has made that, especially for the public schools, they have made that known over the past 5 or so years that, okay, you can transfer, but it's got to be before the end of summer. You cannot transfer in July. You cannot transfer in August. You have to transfer, and you've got to be with that team when your summer workouts start, typically in June. The OHSAA has done an incredible job with that. There's a lot of paperwork that goes in it. They've cracked down on that. So if this does become a reality in the state of Ohio, I do trust the OHSAA to be able to handle that well because on how they've handled those sort of things in the past. Another thing, Matt, one last point before we got to take to a break. This is probably not the time with the whole NIL stuff that's going on in the state of Ohio. This is probably not the time that you want to be talking about illegal recruiting in the state of Ohio. But that's what happened with Ironton. And Ironton, they earned the number 1 seed in their Division 5 and within their region this season for the playoffs. But it was found out that they were, I believe it was illegally recruiting. It was something along those lines. The OHSAA cracked down. No playoffs this year for Ironton. They are on probation until the 27-28 season. 3 coaches suspended from coaching in the playoffs next year as well. Just an unfortunate. They are allowed to keep that 2024 state title from what I've seen, but just wild what's going on right now down in Southeast Ohio. Matt, let's take a break. When we return, we're going to talk playoff points for our Southwest regions. That's all coming up next and more here on the TKDS Sports Network and Sports Now.
Central State University is home.
We on the way. Yeah, it's my time. Who I'm gonna be when I'm in the limelight. Shining in the dark like I was a nightlight. It's my time, yeah. I went from the back to front, last to one. Future looking like man of us. We on the way, no doubt. We on the way, no doubt.
For God.
For Central.
For State.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season, it's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference is anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is coming this fall. Only on HBCU Go.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
When every second counts and every drop matters, you don't settle for ordinary. You power up with Power Mist Racing Fuels. Trusted by champions, engineered for victory. From drag strips to dirt tracks, Power Mist delivers explosive performance, cleaner burns, and unmatched horsepower. Nitro, alcohol, methanol, gasoline blends. Whatever you race, we've got the fuel to ignite your edge. Power Mist Racing Fuels. Born to burn, built to win.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network, our Friday night recap show. Going back to kind of our last point before we move on to playoff points, Matt, real quick, do you remember when I told you that they tested the PA system and I jumped? I got scared?
Yeah.
Well, funny story. Last night, I was calling the Worthington-Kilbourne-Westerville South game alongside our good friend Jimmie Bell. And anybody who knows Jimmy, great guy, funny guy, for sure. We're in our post game. We're talking. I was unaware that there were train tracks right behind the stadium. And a train came rolling through, and I had no idea what it was. I thought it was the drum line that was on the field. I thought that there was a plane falling out of the sky. I was sitting there thinking, we're not close to the Columbus airport right now. What is going on? And it just got louder and louder. And I'm sitting there looking around while Jimmy's talking, and Jimmy hits me on the arm and goes, "It's a train."
Did the train horn scare you, or was it just the train?
I didn't hear it. I never heard it. That's what freaked me out. If I heard it, I'd be like, okay. He just goes, "It's a train." I'm like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So, I don't know. Maybe it's just it's spooky season, so I guess it's getting to me. Matt, let's get into talking some Joe Idle playoff points, and let's start with Division 7, Region 28. With Division 7, Region 28, there's still some things to be worked out right now between that 12 and the 13 seed as Manchester... there's still some things to be worked out between that 12 and 13 seed. Manchester right now, currently the 13. Fort Recovery, currently the final team in at the 12. You look at the teams who have clinched. Cedarville, New Bremen, Minster are your away teams. So Cedarville will be going up. It'll be 11 seed versus 6 seed. That'll be Notre Dame. New Bremen will be taking on Ansonia. That's a 10 versus 7. That's going to be a fun one in itself. And then a 9 versus 8 Minster going on the road to Lehman Catholic. Another fun one. Your teams with a first-round bye, Marion Local, St. Henry, Cincinnati Country Day, and Eastern from Beaver.
Yeah, and I'm taking a look at it, and I think the reason we don't have a definitive answer between Fort Recovery and Manchester is because it's really the one score out of all of the conferences we cover and everything we cover that, trust me when I say I probably tried to find 10 different ways to try to find the score of this game. New Miami versus Miami Valley Christian Academy played last night. I couldn't find a score. Joe Idle couldn't even find a score. So that tells you that there's pretty much been, outside of as long as the game was played last night, there's been no reporting on what the final score of that game was. Manchester in week 2 played against New Miami and won 24-6. So that makes me think, taking a look at, because Fort Recovery, they played against Minster last night, lost 28-21. So that game, the total points that they can get from that has already been calculated, is already in. So, like I said, Manchester already played New Miami, beat them 24-6 in week 2 of the regular season. The current points between Fort Recovery and Manchester, Fort Recovery ends the regular season at 6.45 points. Manchester currently sits at 6.37. New Miami, like I said, played against Miami Valley Christian Academy. So I don't know I haven't been able to find the score for that game. If New Miami were to win, that would be a win against a Division 6 team, so therefore a bigger boost in their total points and a bigger boost in the potential points that Manchester would have received and should receive for beating New Miami. So you take a look at Manchester and their potential points. Their potential points is 6.82. That's the most they can get. The least they can get is their current 6.37. That's why we do not have a definitive 12 seed, is because we're still trying to figure out what the result of that New Miami Valley Christian Academy game is. And like I said, I've looked all over X, I've looked all over Scores, I've looked everywhere I possibly can to try to find the score of that game, and I haven't seen anything on it. Obviously, the man who has a little bit more access to everything, Joe Idle, has not seen or heard anything on that game. Otherwise, that score would be in, and we'd already have a definitive Manchester's the 12 seed or Fort Recovery is the 12 seed. So that's the only reason we do not have a definitive answer for who is the 12 seed in Region 28, is because absolutely nobody and their mother can find the final score of the New Miami versus Miami Valley Christian Academy game. It might even have been postponed to today. I don't know. I haven't been able to find anything on that game, so that's the reason we don't have a definitive 12 seed. But if that game was played last night and we figure out what the final score of that game was, we'll figure out who the 12 seed for Region 28 is.
And Matt, whoever is that 12 seed will be playing the 5 seed next week, Cincinnati College Prep Academy, as well. Matt, a couple of big games that's going to be happening in Region 28 next week. Number 1, New Bremen from the MAC and Ansonia from the WOAC. That's going to be a fun one in itself. And then Lehman Catholic will be hosting Minster. That's a TRC MAC battle as well. We all know how dominant the MAC is, but Ansonia, a team that's been to the regionals over the past couple of years. Lehman Catholic, a team that's made a nice run over the past couple of years. Those two games, a 10-7 and a 9-8 seed, those games are going to be incredible in Region 28.
Yeah, and it's like I said when it comes down to, and when I was talking about Marion Local and what their ceiling was and how good they can be when it comes down to the playoffs, I find it very possible we see Minster take down Lehman Catholic and then New Bremen take down Ansonia. Yes, Ansonia. If there was any one that I would see go differently, I could see Ansonia taking down New Bremen, because Ansonia's offense has been absolutely insane this season. Outside of their Preble Shawnee, but it's Preble Shawnee. Preble Shawnee has proven why they are a 9-1 team and why they're an insanely good team inside of the WOAC, winning 34-8 in week 2, and then Tri-Village, it's Tri-Village. Ansonia was still able to put up 22 points in that game. Tri-Village is the WOAC champions. They're undefeated on the season. Tri-Village won that game 55-22, but you take a look at the points that Ansonia has put up outside of those games. They've played a lot of Division 7 teams. They've played a few They played Arcanum, beat them 38-7. Arcanum is a Division 5 team. They played Dixie, a Division 6 team, beat them 64-0. And against teams in this region, in Division 7, 36-6, 52-6, 38-7, 40-0, 66-28. Ansonia has been putting up big points, big numbers so far the entire season against teams that we see inside of this region. I mean, Mississinewa Valley was one of the teams inside of this region. They ended up playing them last night. 66-28 was the score of that game last night. And Mississinewa Valley finishes as tied for the 15 spot in this region. So a team that wasn't that far out when it comes to their chances of making the playoffs. So Ansonia's offense, it's going to be fun to see what the Cardinals are able to try to do to stop the Tigers' offense. But Minster Lehman Catholic, that's another game that I think is going to be really, really fun and really, really interesting when it comes to the Region 28 playoffs.
Matt, let's go into Division 6 and Region 24. Huntington is out on the outside looking in. The 12 seed Covington will be squaring off next week against the 5 seed. That's going to be Coldwater. Deer Park will be going up against Anna. We will see Dayton Christian playing Rock Hill, and then Portsmouth West going up against Summit Country Day. Your first round buys go to St. Bernard Elmwood Place, Mechanicsburg Northeastern, and Tri-Village claiming the number 1 seed. Anna as the 6th seed. That's a team that I think could be a sleeper in this bracket. Another team coming from the MAC. Another team that's played Marion local close. Another team that's played a lot of stiff competition close as well. Keep an eye out for the Rockets.
Yeah, it's again, talking about the MAC conference when it comes down to once all is said and done and once we start seeing how these playoffs work out. You take a look at Anna, lost to Minster, lost to St. Henry, lost to Marion local. The only game out of all of those that you look at and say, man, it's kind of interesting that they lost that game. It's the game against Minster, but they also took down Coldwater. And they took down Versailles. So Anna and the Rockets, and the Rockets arguably gave Marion local their biggest test on the regular season. Lost in double overtime, and they went for 2 to try to win the game. The pass got batted down. So the Rockets, when it comes down to what we could see from them, what are we going to potentially see from them? Fort Loramie had a little bit of an off season this year when it comes down to how good the Redskins usually are. Anna was able to take them down in week 2 of the regular season. So it's safe to say, once again, you've got Coldwater, you've got Anna as the MAC schools inside of this region. Anybody that's got to face off against them at any point throughout this region, you better bring your best, because it's the same thing year in and year out when it comes to the MAC conference. We talk about it every single time a MAC team makes the playoffs and is a potential team and is a team that is playing good inside of the MAC, like Coldwater and Anna have played this season. If you face off against the MAC school, you better bring your best, because if you don't, you're done. There's no other way of putting it. The MAC is that good of a conference, so anybody in this region that has to face off against Coldwater at any point, or Anna at any point, you better bring your best game, because if you don't, you're packing your bags and your season's done. There's no other way of putting it. Coldwater and Anna, in my opinion, yes, you've got Tri-Village who's looked great. Northeastern's looked great. Mechanicsburg has looked great. St. Bernard Elmwood Place has looked great. If you don't bring your best, Anna and Coldwater are going to crush your dreams when it comes to the playoffs. That's not just take a look at their state championships for football alone. That says that take a look at their state championships overall for every single sport and for football. That says all you need to know about the MAC conference. So if you face off against Coldwater or Anna in this region, and the same can be said for any of the teams facing off against the MAC schools inside of Region 28, you better bring your best or your season's ending. It's just how it is when it comes to MAC schools. The amount of MAC teams we've seen in Canton fighting for state championships over the past couple seasons, that tells you all you need to know about the MAC.
Time for a break. When we return, let's take a look at Division 5 Region 20 and Division 4 Region 26. That's all coming up next on the Friday Night Recap Show.
The year was 1907. The Cubs won the World Series and the Ford Model R hit the assembly line. While here in Ohio, school administrators came together to form the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One thing that hasn't changed since 1907 is the dedication of the OHSAA to education-based athletics in Ohio. School sports teach responsibility, sportsmanship, and life lessons that stay with students long after their playing days are over. The OHSAA seeks to prepare students not for the next level of sport, but for the next level of life.
In communities where leaders are forged and legacies are born, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference proudly celebrates the accomplishments of current and former students. From the playing field to the boardroom, they are the next generation of entrepreneurs, doctors, and executives.
Leaders rise here. Leaders rise here.
Leaders rise here.
Leaders rise here.
A restaurant that only serves chicken fingers was one man's and a dog's dream. They focused on the basics, and all that hard work paid off. Because Cane's puts the dine in dynasty, the yum in triumphant, the feast in undefeasted. This is Raising Cane's, and I'm Kirk Herbstreit, and I'm looking forward to serving you one heck of a chicken finger meal. Now, what can I get you, champ?
I'll take the box combo.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Back here, we're just about 10 minutes away from head coach Jonn Rapp from Indian Lake joining the show to talk about the Lakers and the successful season that they've had. And actually, let's talk about that season here a little bit in Region 20. The 12 seed is still up for grabs. The teams that are still alive, Purcell, Marion, West Liberty, Salem, battling it out for that 12 seed. As of now, West Liberty, Salem holds that number 12 seed. But there is a game that is happening today. Purcell, Marion ended up getting a big win against New Miami. New Miami plays against Miami Valley Christian Academy coming up later today. So, or actually, I beg your pardon, I think that's that score that we couldn't find from last night. So excuse me on that. So once we're able to figure out how that game went, Purcell Marion, things could go their way. They could get enough points to jump West Liberty Salem. But it looks like West Liberty Salem might be holding on to that. So it's either going to be West Liberty Salem or Purcell Marion as the 12 seed. They will be going up against Carlisle, who is the 5 seed. Marymount, the 11 seed, will be playing on the road next week against North College Hill, who will be your 6 seed. Your 10 seed, Arcanum, has clinched it even after their loss last night to Tri-Village. They will be going on the road to play a familiar foe in Preble Shawnee, a WOAC matchup next week on the road at Preble Shawnee High School. Greenview, the 9 seed, playing North Union, the 8 seed. Your teams with a first-round bye, that is Graham Local, Miami East, Indian Lake, and Williamsburg. And Matt, we've talked about it so many times this season. What a comeback season for Graham Local.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the teams that we've talked about a lot when it comes down to things and what the Falcons have been able to do this season. I mean, the one game out of all of them that you take a look at and you're like, yeah, that one makes a lot of sense, was the 42-0 loss to London, but that's because it's London. London, we've talked about so many different times on this show. London's just a buzzsaw inside of the CBC. If you have them on your schedule, it's not that you have to chalk it down as an L, but it's more than likely there's about a 99% chance that it's going to go down in the loss column when you face off against the Red Raiders and you're inside of the CBC. Because, I mean, just taking a look at London against Central Buckeye Conference teams, 44-14, and every other game was a shutout for London. And the lowest points they scored was 30 against Kenton Ridge last night out of all their Central Buckeye Conference games. So London, it's a buzzsaw when you face off against the Red Raiders. The one game that Graham is going to be a little bit upset about and is going to want back is their loss against Indian Lake in Week 9. I believe they were ahead in that game for multiple different instances, and then they lose to Indian Lake. Who knows what that would have ended up doing when it comes down to where Graham Local would be seated right now. Indian Lake's the 2 seed. Graham Local currently sitting at the 4 seed. So that probably would have shaken things up when it comes down to whether or not Graham might have been the number 2 seed in this region. We don't know. It's very close between that 2 seed and that 4 seed where Graham Local sits. And it's safe to say when it comes down to what the Falcons have been able to do this season, you can only tip your hat and give props to what Rich Clark has been able to do with this team this year. It's been a complete turnaround for Graham this year when it comes down to what they've been able to do over the past couple seasons, what they were compared to what they were able to do this year. No matter you have locked in that 4 spot, they've clinched it. It's awesome to see the Falcons be able to do what they were able to do. The other game that wasn't mentioned for Purcell Marion that would be even more of a boost is the Hughes game against Aiken that takes place today. That's the other game that could influence how many points Purcell Marion gets once all is said and done with that game. So and even then, it's very tough for Purcell Marion to make it in. They would need Hughes to get the biggest win possible and New Miami to get the biggest win possible against Miami Valley Christian Academy to propel themselves up into a playoff spot. Because like I said, the max points they can get is 8.89, and West Liberty Salem sits at 8.8. So it's going to be tough for Purcell Marion to make it in based off of the result of the New Miami game and the result of the Hughes game. But they're not mathematically out. So we need to wait and see what happens between Aiken and Hughes today to find out what happens to Purcell Marion. But talking about matchups, like you mentioned, WOAC versus WOAC, Preble Shawnee versus Arcanum, another team that I've talked about a lot in this region. You talk about giving props to teams. Give props to North College Hill. This is the first time since, I believe, 2011, they have outright earned their spot in the playoffs. And the reason I say outright earned is because everybody made it in 2020. North College Hill won it and earned it this year and made it to that 6th seed. Like I said, I think 2011 was the last time they earned themselves a playoff spot. And it was harder for them to earn themselves a playoff spot back then because that was when it was an 18 playoff. But North College Hill earned it this year. They got it done. They won games that they needed to win. They are 8-2 once all is said and done, and they earned themselves the playoff spot. So you got to give North College Hill and the Trojans some props as well inside of this region for what they were able to do this year.
Matt, I think one of the more developing stories isn't who made it in that region, it's who missed it in that region. Versailles and the Tigers, they started off the season 4-1, a 1-point loss to New Bremen, and then a 1-point loss to Marion Local. And we were sitting here saying, oh, Versailles, this is a good team. This is a good team. This is going to be a team fighting atop the MAC. They finished on a 5-game losing streak to end their season at 4-6, and they miss the playoffs. Waynesville also missing the playoffs for the first time in a couple of years as well. Into Division 4, Region 16, Kenton Ridge, Urbana, both those teams are out, missing the playoffs. Kenton Ridge drops from the 12 to the 13 seed. That was a cutoff. We're seeing 12 seed Cleves Taylor taking on 5 seed Clinton Massey next week on the road. Bishop Fenwick will be going up against Brookville. Now we have some mixtures between the 8 and the 10 seed right now. 8 and the 10 seed, it could go anywhere between Washington, New Richmond, and Roger Bacon. So those are still all up for grabs. That means whoever's at 10 seed will be playing Wyoming. Whoever is the 8 and the 9 seed will square off against each other. Your first round buys are Taft, CHCA, Valley View, and Indian Hill.
And yeah, it once again comes down to comes down to that Aiken-Hughes game that we're going to see played today, because Roger Bacon took down Hughes 35-8 earlier on back in week 3. So they've got a big win against Hughes. So if Hughes ends up taking down Aiken, talking about Aiken being a Division II team, that's going to be a huge bump in points for Hughes, therefore meaning the amount of points that Roger Bacon would earn off of that win against Hughes is going to be inflated, and it's going to be a little more. The max amount of points that Roger Bacon can sit at is 12.95. Washington from Washington Courthouse is locked in at 12.55. New Richmond is locked at 12.4. Roger Bacon currently sits at 12.35. So that's why we still haven't seen a definitive who's the 8 seed, who's the 9 seed, who's the 10 seed. It's because Hughes has to play Aiken today. That's the big crux for a lot of these regions we're talking about right now. So if Hughes gets a win, that's going to bump it should at least bump Roger Bacon up to that 9 spot, and it could even get him a home game. But we need to wait and see what happens between Hughes and Aiken later today.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And, when you just take a look at that Hughes-Aiken game as well, there's just so much that can rely on that, especially that 8 and the 9 seed within that. And, Matt, one thing I kind of wanted to touch base on here is you look at the top. I think there is a huge discrepancy between seeds 8 through 12 and 1 through 7 here. I think really any team between 1 through 7 can win this region. Indian Hill, Valley View, CHCA, Taft. Those are your first round buys. Taft, Indian Hill, both 10-0. The other two, 9-1. And then you have Clinton Massey, Brookville, and Wyoming, who are all 9-1. And we're talking about Wyoming right now being the number 7 seed. When was the last time that's happened? And they're a one-loss team. Their one loss was to Indian Hill, the number 1 seed. That just goes to show you how tight this region is, how close it's going to be. I don't see any Cinderella runs coming from the 8 to the 12 seed, but I see a absolute bloodshed between the 1 through the 7. Matt, we got to take a small break. When we return, Jonn Rapp, head coach from Indian Lake, will be joining us on the other side of this commercial break. Once again, after the interview with Jonn Rapp, we will talk about Division 3, 2, and 1, all referencing the Joe Idol points. Joe Idol. Follow along at joeidol.com when we return. But coming up next, Jonn Rapp joining us from Indian Lake. We're back in a few moments here on the Friday Night Recap Show, all powered by TKDS Sports.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season, it's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference is anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is coming this fall, only on HBCU Go.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
When every second counts and every drop matters, you don't settle for ordinary. You power up with Power Mist Racing Fuels. Trusted by champions, engineered for victory. From drag strips to dirt tracks, Power Mist delivers explosive performance, cleaner burns, and unmatched horsepower. Nitro, alcohol, methanol, gasoline blends. Whatever you race, we've got the fuel to ignite your edge. Power Mist Racing Fuels. Born to burn, built to win.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
The year was 1907. The Cubs won the World Series and the Ford Model R hit the assembly line. While here in Ohio, school administrators came together to form the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One thing that hasn't changed since 1907 is the dedication of the OHSAA to education-based athletics in Ohio. School sports teach responsibility, sportsmanship, and life lessons that stay with students long after their playing days are over. The OHSAA seeks to prepare students not for the next level of sport, but for the next level of life.
In communities where leaders are forged and legacies are born, the Southern Intercollegiate Athletic Conference proudly celebrates the accomplishments of current and former students. From the playing field to the boardroom, they are the next generation of entrepreneurs, doctors, and executives.
Leaders rise here. Leaders rise here.
Leaders rise here.
Leaders rise here.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. It is our pleasure to welcome in Jonn Rapp, the head coach of Indian Lake, the Lakers football team. Coach, thanks again for taking time out of your busy Saturday morning to join us here today.
Hey, I appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Coach Jonn Rapp, head coach again of Indian Lake. And Coach Rapp, let's take a look at what Indian Lake's been able to do this season. Obviously, a finish of 8-2, a big win last night. You started the season 2-2. You're on a 6-game winning streak right now, and that was good enough to clinch the number 2 seed in Region 5, Division 5, Region 20. Excuse me. So Indian Lake is going to have that first round bye. So when you look at when you look at how you're taking this week, how does this differ from some of the other weeks?
Well, it's definitely, we're in uncharted territory. First time we've ever had buys here for the playoffs, and we ended up getting one. So it's a little bit of uncharted territory for everybody. But I guess the challenge has been to find a way to keep things as normal as possible. Football coaches, football players are very routine oriented. Keep it as normal as possible, but yet allow yourself to rest up, heal up, physically and mentally. So I think it's going to be an interesting challenge. I know for me and for the kids, I think it's going to be a little bit tougher for the coaches because we're more set in our ways and routine oriented than the kids are. So we got to kind of find a way to strike that happy balance between staying in rhythm. Like you said, we've won 6 in a row. Keep that rhythm, keep that momentum, but allow ourselves to rest up physically and mentally. So it's going to be interesting. I'm kind of excited for the challenge of it.
So, Coach, when you take a look at when you take a look at Indian Lake this year, a 6-game winning streak heading into the playoffs. Now, keep in mind the bye weeks in the OHSA playoffs, that's something new. That's not something that we've had in any previous year or any previous playoff format. It went from 4 teams to 8 to everyone to 16 down to 12. So this is the first time that we've actually seen bye weeks at the high school level. With you guys being on a 6-game winning streak, is this a situation where you guys just want to keep rolling and you want to be playing as much as possible, or are you guys excited for the week break?
Well, it's I know for a couple guys, it's very welcomed because it's going to allow some bumps and some bruises. 10-week season, we've been at this since July. It's going to allow some bumps and bruises to heal up. So from that aspect, I'm actually looking forward to it for those guys. For us coaches, I think it's going to be a challenge. I think it's going to be a challenge to stay in rhythm, kind of stay on schedule. And that way we come out week 12 and stay sharp. So we always talk about, kind of beating the world. And it's definitely one of those situations where we're going to have to find a way to beat the world, and that now includes having a bye week. So I always like when challenges are placed in front of us because I like having the kids have to get up for accepting those challenges, and I think this is going to be an interesting one.
Coach, let's take a look at your season in the Central Buckeye Conference. You were Mad River Division champions. London was Kenton Trail Division champions. So co-champions between both of you guys, 8-2 in the season. In the Central Buckeye Conference this year, it was competitive all the way throughout in that Kenton Trail Division. You have London, Jonathan Alder, Bell Fountain. Urbana really came to life, but it was a little too late for them to make the playoffs. In your division, North Union putting together a good season. Graham putting together an incredible season. Talk to us about what it's like to play in that tough CBC conference and what it's like going up against a tough opponent week in and week out.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it doesn't happen every year, but this year's definitely one of those ones where our Mad River division was tough. And it's not always like that because, a lot of these small schools, ourselves included, it's a roller coaster. You have your up years and your down years. But this was definitely an up year in the Mad River. And in every, it seemed like every week we rolled out into a conference game. We had to bring our best. And I think it brought the best out in our kids. And then if you look early in the year with our crossover games to the Kenton Trail, the bigger division, you're playing against bigger schools, and you gotta. It brings the best out in you. Both Fountain's a cross-county rival, so that one's always interesting to play because of the rivalry. And then London, like you said, 10-0. So, we start the year out, with some bigger schools, some tougher schools, and that's where we got our 2 losses. But I think those losses kind of set us up for success later in the year because we were playing bigger schools, and it forced us to kind of to up our game. So it's not always easy early when you're playing those bigger, tougher schools, but it really, if you handle it right, if the boys handle it right, it really does set us up for success later in the year.
Coach, this season you had to put in a new starting quarterback, a junior, Brady Galladay, and he played excellent for you guys. 16 passing touchdowns, 4 rushing touchdowns. Most important thing is that, for the most part, he took care of the football this season. Can you kind of elaborate on the process of getting a new quarterback in, getting him coached up, getting his confidence level ready to play on Friday nights, and also speak on Galladay on how he was able to respond and put together a great junior campaign?
Yeah, I've said it since July, early August, and I'll even say it now, even though we're 10 weeks into the season's done, we're in the playoffs. I really think he's ahead of schedule. And I think that goes back to early summer, way back in June when we started having open fields, and we actually kind of front-loaded our 7-on-7 schedule. We did more earlier in the summer than we normally do because, new quarterback, we want to get him on schedule or ahead of schedule. And so we changed our summer around to do that. And I think it really benefited him to get those kind of an excessive amount of reps early in the year. So then when we got into camp and in 2-a-days, it wasn't new. So I think the team, the boys, the players, and especially Galladay, I think they handled that really well, along with the coaches, kind of switching our summer around to get everything earlier so we could get ahead of schedule. So that way when we got into 2-a-days, we were on schedule. I attribute a lot of it to that. And then, him personally, it hasn't been perfect. We've made our mistakes, but he's really good at owning them and learning from them and then growing from them. So, hats off to him, hats off to the assistant coaches for getting on schedule and actually what I believe is ahead of schedule.
We take a look at Region 20 and kind of going back to the playoffs. Region 20 stacked from top to bottom. Great teams, from the 12 seed all the way up to the number 1 seed. And there you guys are sitting at the 2 seed. We've already talked about you playing the tough schedule in the Central Buckeye Conference and now kind of furthering that into your playoff, into the playoffs in Region 20. What's your message to the team now kind of going in week-to-week basis?
The week to week basis, it's kind of been how we rolled through our conference play is, we play ourselves every week. We're playing a standard, and if we want to get to where we want to go, we got to make sure that we're always improving upon that standard, and we're always beating ourselves. So, Tuesday's got to beat Monday, Wednesday's got to beat Tuesday, sort of thing. And we've done that here the last couple of years, and it's really served us well because we have to game plan and look at an opponent and break them down and come up with things we want to do and things that we don't want to do against certain opponents. But ultimately, when it all is said and done, it comes down to our one-on-one battles, and then that comes down to we have to set our own personal individual standard and then set our team standard. So we're gonna continue that here through the bye week and into week 12, and we're gonna kind of try to keep resetting our standard on a daily basis. And I think if we do so, it'll serve us well.
Well, Coach, thank you again for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today. We appreciate you, and best of luck to you through the postseason, and we hope to talk to you here soon.
Hey, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Once again, that's head coach Jonn Rapp from Indian Lake. We're going to take a small break. When we return, we're back to talking playoff seeding. That and more coming up on the Friday Night Recap Show.
I'm Kirk Herbstreit, and today I'm eating Raising Cane's.
Herbstreit's in the drive-thru again. Oh, hey, Kirk. What can I get you today?
I want a solid bench of 4 chicken fingers that are real difference makers. Sprinkle-cut fries with dynamic ridge patterns, Texas toast, and cane sauce with an air of smugness that comes from knowing you're the best. Now back to you, Todd.
So the usual.
Make Raising Cane's part of your game day lineup. One love.
Looking to elevate your brand with quality custom printing? Red Ball Specialty Printing in Springfield, Ohio. Family owned and dedicated to attention, quality, and service. We customize everything from shirts, drinkware, pens, awards, and more. Whether 50 pieces or 5,000, we deliver color crisp, branding brilliant. From promotional apparel to recognition awards, we're your one-stop for impactful merchandise. Visit rbspdesignschipley.com or call 937-215-0740 today. Red Ball, you think it, they ink it.
When life gets messy, make it sweet. Only Dirty Dough delivers maximum flavor from the inside-out layers, mix-ins, and gooey fillings. No filters, no fuss, just real cookies for real life. Every week, a rotating lineup of handcrafted flavors. Join the loyalty program, earn points on every purchase, redeem for free cookies, and get a cookie on your birthday. Dirty Dough, it's what's inside that counts.
Central State University is home.
Yeah, it's my time. Who I'm gonna be when I'm in the limelight. Shining in the dark like I was a nightlight. It's my time, yeah. I went from the back to front, last to one. Future looking magnanimous. We on the way, no doubt. We on the way, no doubt.
For God.
For Central.
For State. And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports Network. Once again, this show is all sponsored by Red Ball Specialty Printing. You think it, they ink it. Visit off Deer Road in Springfield, Ohio for all your custom apparel needs. Dirty Dough, the PAL location. Visit them off Sawmill Parkway and get some excellent fix that sweet tooth craving with Dirty Dough cookies. And Raising Cane's chicken fingers, one love. Matt, let's continue on, and I believe that we're all the way up into region number 3 now with region 12, division 3. When we're talking some of the playoff points, once again, we're back into JoeIdle.com. Again, a huge shout-out to Joe Idle. Let's talk about it. This is all but confirmed as well. Unofficial, but there's going to be no more movement within these regions that we're talking about. Hillsboro, the 12 seed. Bell Fountain, the 13 seed. they are out. So Hillsborough able to overtake Bellefontaine. They're the 12th seed. They're going to be going on the road to play Miami Trace next weekend. The 11th seed, that's Bellbrook. They're going to go play Alter on the road. That's a classic. That is a under-the-radar rivalry that we have seen over the past couple of years between Bellbrook and Alter. That should be a fun one. Goshen in as the 10th seed. They go to Talawanda next week. The 9th seed is Chillicothe. They will play Archbishop McNicholas. And your home playoff teams that get a first-round bye are London, Tippecanoe, Baden, and Jackson. Matt, we already talked about the big win for McNicholas. Let's also talk about a couple of big wins that Bellbrook's been able to put together over the last couple of weeks. Remember, heading into this week, Bellbrook was on the outside looking in. They finished their season at 6-4, and they finished on a 3-game winning streak, beating Monroe, Oakwood, who finished 6-4, and Ross. This was a team that was 3-4, and their playoff chances were slim. A nice winning streak. They're carrying some momentum into the playoffs, and they have an Alter team that is going to be tough, but I also still think is beatable for the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, it's going to be tough because these two teams have already faced off against each other, and Alter was the team that came out victorious 21-3, and we talk about it being tough to beat the same team twice, but Alter's been able to see what Bellbrook brought to the table. I mean, it's the same can be said for both teams. Bellbrook has seen what Alter brings to the table. Alter has seen what Bellbrook can bring to the table. So it's good for the Golden Eagles to have gone on the 3-game win streak at the end of the season, winning 4 of their last 5 games on the season. Their only loss was to Franklin, who in this region ended up missing out of the playoffs. So for Bellbrook, it's a familiar opponent. It's a game that they can win. But for Alter, it's a team that Alter's already played Bellbrook. They already know what they need to do to beat Bellbrook. They know what they can do to beat Bellbrook. They've already done it this season. So it's a rematch of what we saw earlier on in the season. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. No doubt about it. It's going to be a great matchup between Alter and Bellbrook. Another game that I'm looking at and talking about, interesting matchup. It'll be fun to see what both of these two teams bring to the table. I'm looking at that Talawanda game against Goshen because you take a look at Goshen and what they've been able to do running the football so far this season. A very run-heavy team and a team that puts a lot on their running back, Gage Crowley. And then you flip the script over to Talawanda. You take a look at what they've been able to do. They're a team that is a run-heavy team. They put a lot on the back of their running back, Lance Cantrell. It's 2 running backs. Crowley, not quite able to reach the 2,000-yard mark in the regular season, but he hit 1,926 yards rushing the football in the regular season. Lance Cantrell, 2,001 yards rushing the football at the end of the regular season. So you've got 2 run-heavy teams facing off against each other, and it's going to be an interesting matchup. Which running game is going to be the one that comes out on top? Is it going to be Goshen's run game with Gage Crowley, or is it going to be Lance Cantrell and Talawanda's run game that comes out on top? So you're going to see a very run-heavy matchup between Talawanda and Goshen. There's a lot of good matchups inside of Region 12. There's a lot of good matchups in a lot of regions that we're talking about, and a lot of playoff regions that we're going to talk about coming up later on in the show. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to see a lot of fun matchups, a lot of games that are going to be turning heads, and we're going to be talking about once they're played out next Friday, and we're going to be talking about, man, did you see that coming? I didn't see that coming. It's what happens when playoff time comes around in the state of Ohio. So there's a lot of interesting matchups in Region 12. There's a lot of interesting matchups we've already talked about in all the regions we've talked about. There's going to be a lot of interesting matchups that we talk about from Region 8 to Region 4 to Region 2. It's what the playoffs are about. Fun matchups, fun games, and a lot of things up in the air for who's going to move on.
Yeah, and going back to that Goshen and Talawanda game, Goshen, they started off the season red hot. And, one thing that kind of concerns me about the Warriors is that they went from looking like a team to beat in Region 12 to basically they had those back-to-back losses Obviously, one of them to Clinton Massey. I'm not holding that against them. The one loss I am going to hold against them, though, is that New Richmond. New Richmond was only a 4-6 team, and they ended up winning that one 41-35. Now, granted, New Richmond has had success in the past. That's still a winnable program. You take a look, and their 4-6 as a team is a lot different than other teams with a 4-6 record as well. So you can't, and it's every given Friday, so you can't hold that too much against Goshen, but that does kind of concern me. And then you go in, you beat Wilmington, that's great. And then Western Brown, you win, but it was only by 7. And it was a must-win scenario for Goshen to get themselves into the playoffs. They clinched last night, and it wasn't a pretty clinch. And if you're Goshen, you have to be excited that you're making the playoffs, but you also have to realize that you're not playing your best football. You're not playing your best football back from that 4-game winning streak where you beat Waynesville, Bethel Tate, Blanchester, and Batavia. Now, granted, neither of those teams have a winning record. Your schedule did get stronger, but it does give me a little bit more worries with Goshen. Now, I will go ahead and say this. Lance Cantrell on the other side for Talawanda, he very well could, at the end of the season, be a Mr. Football candidate across the state of Ohio. I think he should be. Over 2,000 yards rushing, 25 rushing touchdowns as well. A couple weeks ago, we were saying that and mentioning that he was on pace to put up C.J. Hester-like numbers if Talawanda makes a run. Granted, he had a couple of down games, and when I say down games, I mean one down game against Harrison with only 59 rushing yards. You take that game out of the picture, the lowest amount of rushing yards he rushed for in a game was $127. The most he rushed for was 423. He put up 231 yesterday. He now has 5 games with over 200 yards rushing. Lance Cantrell has a chance to be in the Mr. Football candidacy across the state of Ohio. I think he should be. I'm calling it for it now. Now, when you have Goshen that hasn't been playing their best football, when you have Talawanda that has been playing some good football with this great running back, this game, I think if Goshen comes out and plays how we've seen them play multiple times this season and plays to their best ability, they can win this game. But I got to go with Talawanda. I think Talawanda is going to be a tough team to beat within this region. They're the 7 seed. I don't think that they should be the 7 seed. This is a team that I would argue could be playing with some of the top. This is a team that I would argue saying that this could be, if another game went their way or so, and this is a team that could be first round bye potential. I don't think they're up there with London. I don't think they're up there with Tippecanoe. I don't think they're up there with Baden. Every other team I could see Talawanda competing with.
Yeah, for me, the only worry for Talawanda, in my eyes, is what are we going to see when they face off against a defense that is worth putting in the conversation of being a good defense? We saw them face off against Harrison, and Lance Cantrell wasn't really able to do anything. And they lost that game 14-0. So, and you take a look at the rest of the schedule for Talawanda. They beat 6-4 Taylor, who barely squeaked into the playoffs. Beat them 51-21. That was a very big win for Talawanda. But outside of that, we don't really see many teams, and really, I don't think outside of Harrison, there's a team that made the playoffs that Talawanda played. I think Taylor and Harrison were the 2 teams they played that made the playoffs this year. So for me, for Talawanda, it all comes down to what are we going to see when they face off against a strong defense again? Because, like you mentioned, I see Talawanda beating Goshen. I think that's probably what we're going to end up seeing once all is said and done after Week 11. But what are we going to say and what are we going to see for Talawanda when they face off against a strong defense? Because realistically, they faced off against one truly strong defense this year. That was Harrison. They lost 14-0, and Harrison was shooting themselves in the foot a lot in that game. That game could have been opened up a lot more for the Wildcats of Harrison. So, for me, I'm taking a look at this game, and Talawanda did miss a few field goals in that game too. So you can't really get too mad at Talawanda for not putting up a single point. They got themselves in scoring position multiple times in that game, but couldn't quite finish out drives and couldn't quite capitalize on being in scoring position and having a chance of getting points. So you also have to look at that side of the coin for Talawanda as well. But for me, for the Brave, it's a question of what are we going to see when this team faces off against a good defense. It is solid and stout defense at that. Because Goshen has defense. But Talawanda's got to get enough running back in Lance Cantrell that good defense for Goshen might not be able to do anything against Lance Cantrell. But we take a look at potential future matchups for Talawanda when it comes to the playoffs. They're going to have to, if they want to end up being the team that represents Region 12, they're going to have to play against some strong defenses. And I don't know what Talawanda is going to be able to do against those strong defenses once the time comes. So I'm up in the air on what we see from Talawanda with this playoffs. Lance Cantrell, you can't fault him for having an incredible season because he's had over 2,000 rushing yards of the regular season. That's averaging 200 rushing yards a game. It doesn't matter who you play. Week in and week out, if you're averaging 200 rushing yards on a game per game on the season, you got to give props and you got to give credit where credit's due. But they've faced off against a really strong Harrison defense, and we didn't really see too much production from Cantrell. So that's what worries me for Talawanda. They're a one-dimensional team with Lance Cantrell running the football. If that aspect of the game, I mentioned it when it comes down to that Harrison game, their run game got taken out of the equation, and they weren't able to do anything. That worries me for Talawanda when it comes to the playoffs, because you're going to face off against teams that are able to stop the run. And what is Talawanda going to be able to do in response to their run game having issues and facing off against challenges in a game? We saw it once. Talawanda didn't put up any points and lost 14-0. That scares me for Talawanda when it comes to their chances in the playoffs.
Let's move on to Division 2, Region 8. Region 2, Division 8, Division 2, Region 8, the 13 seed Aiken, they play today. They control their own destiny. Aiken goes up against Hughes with a win. They are in as the 11 seed. With a loss, they are out. Win, you're in. Lose, you're out. No room for error. If Aiken wins, we will see Turpin move to the 12 seed. Edgewood will be out. If Aiken loses, Turpin the 11 seed, Edgewood as the 12. So Edgewood is a huge fan of Hughes coming up later today. As of right now, whoever that 12 seed is, whether it's Turpin or Edgewood, they'll be going on the road next week to play Cincinnati LaSalle. The 11 seed, whether it's Aiken or Turpin, will be playing on the road against Harrison next week. The 10 seed is Butler. They're going to be going up against Lima Senior on the road. Withrow on the road going to Piqua. Piqua, their first playoff appearance since 2022. And yes, that even was included with the 16 playoff format. Piqua finishing their season at 6-4. Your first round buys go to Xenia, Trotwood, Madison, Anderson, or Kings and Anderson. Anderson will claim the number 1 seed. ECC heavy in this region.
Yeah, a lot of ECC teams, and you talk about Piqua making the playoffs. I'm worried about Piqua's chances against Withrow because Withrow is a strong team. Piqua still can get the job done, but the problem for both of those two teams, Piqua and Withrow, is you've got to deal with Anderson in round 2 of the playoffs. Whichever team comes out on top, whether it be Piqua or Withrow, you've got to deal with the team we talk about London being a buzzsaw and how good they are in the Central Buckeye Conference. I think Anderson is a buzzsaw team inside of Region 8. So for me, there are teams that I could potentially see beating Anderson, but there's a reason that we take a look at the points accumulated for teams in Region 8 of the teams with a bye. You've got Xenia at 21.8 points accumulated. You've got Trotwood at 21.98 points accumulated. You've got Kings taking a huge step up at 26.2. If you guys aren't looking at Joe Idle's points, you're going to see another big jump, and you're going to hear another big jump when it comes to the points that Anderson has put up and accumulated this season. You go from 26.25 with Kings at the 2 spot Anderson's accumulated 36.45. So they have well and truly earned themselves that number one spot, and they're coming off of a runners-up for a state title last year, losing to Avon in the state championship game. So Anderson's got a little bit of a chip on their shoulder with how explosive their offense is, and they're looking for a chance at a state championship and looking to make it back to Canton this year. So for me, there are teams that could potentially beat Anderson, but it for me feels like we're dealing with the Marion local of years past with Anderson and how good they've looked so far this season. You've got teams that could beat them, but realistically, there might not be a team in this region that stands a chance. I mean, the number two seed in this region, Kings, lost to them 49-24 back in week 5 of the regular season. So is it possible that we see a team in this region take down Anderson? Yes. Do I see it happening? Absolutely not. And that's just because Anderson has been dominant all season long. There really has been one game this entire year that you take a look at it and you go, ooh, that was actually a really good game. And that was against an 8-2 Division I team in Winton Woods that we're going to talk about when we talk about Region 4. So Anderson has been absolutely dominant all season long outside of that road game against Winton Woods where they won 37-30. And that was realistically for Winton Woods one of the few games this season where we're talking about the Winton Woods offense being productive and being the staple in what was to see for Winton Woods in that game. So Anderson, I see it being difficult, and I find it hard to believe that there's a team inside of this region that is going to be able to put up a fight and be able to do anything against this Raptors team. It's going to be tough for Anderson to take down Kings twice in the same season, with that being a conference opponent. Kings has already seen Anderson this year. We talk about it being tough to beat the same team twice, especially when it's a conference opponent. But Anderson has proven it. They're over 10 points ahead of Kings when it comes to the points accumulated. That's the 1 versus 2 when it comes to the seeding. So I see Anderson taking Region 8. There's a chance that they lose, but I don't see it being possible.
Of course, Anderson, they've been to the state Final Four in back-to-back years. They will look to make it 3 in a row. The ECC has actually had a representative in the state Final Four going back over the last 4 years. Anderson in the last 2, Kings in 22, Winton Woods back in 21 when they won it all. Time for a break. When we return, we'll talk about Division I, Region 4, Region 2. That's all coming up next.
Looking to elevate your brand with quality custom printing? Red Ball Specialty Printing in Springfield, Ohio. Family owned and dedicated to attention, quality, and service. We customize everything from shirts, drinkware, pens, awards, and more. Whether 50 pieces or 5,000, we deliver color crisp, branding brilliant. From promotional apparel to recognition awards, we're your one-stop for impactful merchandise. Visit rbspdesignschipley.com or call 937-215-0740 today. Red Ball, you think it, they ink it.
When life gets messy, make it sweet. Only Dirty Dough delivers maximum flavor from the inside-out layers, mix-ins, and gooey fillings. No filters, no fuss, just real cookies for real life. Every week, a rotating lineup of handcrafted flavors. Join the loyalty program, earn points on every purchase, redeem for free cookies, and get a cookie on your birthday. Dirty Dough, it's what's inside that counts.
A restaurant that only serves chicken fingers was one man's and a dog's dream. They focused on the basics, and all that hard work paid off. Because Cane's puts the dine in dynasty, the yum in triumphant, the feast in undefeasted. This is Raising Cane's, and I'm Kirk Herbstreit, and I'm looking forward to serving you one heck of a chicken finger meal. Now, what can I get you, champ?
I'll take the box combo.
now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt, for the Sports Now Update Show.
On to the final two regions we need to talk about. It's Division 1, Region 4, Division 1, Region 2. That's all coming up. Let's talk about Division 1, Region 4 first. This is somewhat official. There still could be some movement between the 8 and the 9 seed. That game may flip, but the two teams are going to be playing up against each other. Again, we're on the Joe Idol website. Shout out to Joe Idol at joeidol.com. You can follow along with us. Division 1, Region 4, sneaking in as the 12 seed, winning back-to-back games through the final 2 weeks of the season. This was a team that was 1-7, Matt, and now they are 3-7. And with this region, it was just enough to fit them in. Shout out to Little Miami. They're in as the 12 seed. They will be on the road against Winton Woods. Have fun, an in-conference matchup. Two teams that are familiar with each other, but Winton Woods, of course, a powerhouse. The 11 seed Oak Hills will be going on the road to Lakota East to take on the Thunderhawks of Lakota East. Hamilton gets the 10 seed. They get their rematch against Lakota West, who's the 7 seed. This game could flip-flop where it's going to be played. But Mason and Fairfield, one team will be the 9, one team will be the 8, one team will host, one team will be on the road. And then, of course, your 4 teams that have that first round bye: Princeton, St. Xavier, Moeller, and Elder as well. So those are your teams that have your first round bye. St. Xavier will have 2 weeks off in a row because they could not play on Friday. The team they were going up against did not have enough players to field a team. And Matt, that leads me now into my next question is St. Xavier. We've talked about how there's been no bye weeks at the high school level in prior history. And now you're adding a bye week. It'll be interesting to see how the teams react to the bye week. But not only just that, but now you throw in St. Xavier, who's got 2 weeks off in a row. How does that affect the Bombers?
Well, the Bombers were able to have from what I was seeing, they had a scrimmage basically against themselves last night, which is really when it comes down to your opponent not being able to field a team. That's really all you're able to do when it comes down to not having a game, and especially with your team making the playoffs. And you mentioned the fact that they're the 3 seed, going to have a bye for the first round. So St. Xavier, it made a lot of sense that they had an inter-squad scrimmage last night. So it could affect the Bombers. I mean, when it comes down to it, you take a look at their potential opponent. Should be either Lakota East or Lakota East opponent in Oak Hills. So there's questions on who St. Xavier is going to have to play, but realistically, we're talking about a GCL South team who's been very, very, very good in recent years. Talking about what that means for St. Xavier, we don't know yet. It's technically 2 bye weeks up until we see St. Xavier play again. They're forced to have a bye week being the 3 seed, and then the unforced bye week in Life Christian Academy not fielding enough players for a team and not being able to play St. Xavier last night. So it's obviously a big question of what that's going to mean for the Bombers, but for me, when it comes to this region as a whole, the thing I'm looking at and the game I'm looking at, we've got a lot of conference games when it comes down to each first-round matchup, but it's the game that you mentioned hasn't been determined who's the home team yet. It's Fairfield versus Mason. We saw these teams play against each other in Week 7. Fairfield beat Mason at home in overtime, 14-13. So we talk about conference opponents. We talk about how good each matchup's going to be. We might see the best matchup when it comes down to what could happen and how close and how competitive it's going to be with Fairfield facing off against Mason. With the 8 seed versus 9 seed, the teams are obviously in the GMC. They've played each other. Overtime win for Fairfield. In my opinion, that should give them enough. Both teams are 5-5. I know it comes down to the not Joe Idol points, but it comes down to the amount of points each team accumulates, how good their opponents were out of conference, blah, 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 this, that. Mason lost to Springboro. You take a look at Fairfield. They lost to Wayne. Both of those games were fairly competitive between both Mason's loss to Springboro and Fairfield's loss to Wayne. But it's going to be one heck of a matchup between Fairfield and Mason. It's a question of who's going to be the home team, but when it comes down to first-round matchups and what to expect from each team, I think Fairfield-Mason is going to be one heck of a first-round game here in Region 4.
Absolutely. And Matt, let's go into Division 1, Region 2. Marysville from Columbus. They get the win last night over Darby, and they get the help that they need. Upper Arlington takes down Hilliard-Davidson. Marysville is in as the 12 seed. Davidson is out as the 13 seed. Davidson, this is a team that started off 4-1, and just like Versailles we talked about a little bit ago, lost their last 5 games in a row. That loss against 2-8 Dublin Kaufman was really the one that caused it, and then Liberty and Arlington able to put the nails in the coffin. So Davidson is out. Darby is out. Beaver Creek lost last night to Fairmont. That eliminated them. There were a lot of what-ifs within this region. 12 seed Marysville, the Monarchs, they are in. They are on the road next week to play Springfield. Now, we had Kyle Funk, who was on the call for that Springfield-Northmont game, and he mentioned that Springfield got banged up a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see if they can get healthy. Keep in mind, even with that win against Northmont, Springboro, with their win last night, were able to jump Springfield. So Springboro has the first run bye. Springfield does not. So Springfield doesn't have that extra week off now, and with them getting a little banged up last night, how are their players going to be ready to go next Friday? How are they going to respond? Is it serious? Is it going to be a serious problem for Springfield next week? We don't know. Obviously, we won't know until we actually get into the week. We're talking 12 hours after the games, the following morning. So we're not going to know fully until next week. But that's a storyline to keep an eye on. Marysville and Springfield, that's your 12 versus 5. Westland will be going to Wayne. Huber Heights, Wayne Warriors, they're the 6th seed. That loss against Beaver Creek last week could have costed them a first-round bye as well. Your 10 seed is Dublin Jerome. They're going on the road to play a very good Hilliard-Bradley team, who's the 7th seed. Fairmont, Mary Clinchmas last night. Fairmont gets in with their win over Beaver Creek. They are going on the road next week to Lebanon to face off against the Lebanon Warriors team, who Lebanon was in prime position to also have a first-round bye. 5 second-half turnovers. They were up on Whitten Woods 10-3. They lost that game 31-10. 5 second-half turnovers from Lebanon. Lebanon, that takes them from the 6th seed all the way down to the 8th seed. Still a home playoff team as they host Kettering Fairmont next week. Your teams in this region with a first-round bye, Springboro, Findlay, Troy, and Middletown. Matt, let me just tell you, this region, it's been the most intriguing region shaping up in that we've talked about all year. But not only has it been the most intriguing region shaping up to this point, I think it's going to be the most intriguing region in the playoffs as well, because I don't see just one dominant team within this region. You have Middletown, who just took down Princeton. That's great, but they've also looked beatable at times this season. They lost to Hamilton. Troy, the similar situation. And then you go back and look at some of the lower seed. Marysville, 5-5. That's probably one of the better 5-5 teams across the state of Ohio. They have stacked their schedule, and Marysville has played some close games. They have played some really good teams in that mix as well. I like what the Monarchs bring to the table. They could be a Cinderella run. You could say the same thing with Westland. Fairmont with back-to-back wins and a big one over Springfield to basically keep their playoff hopes alive. We were talking about them going into Week 9 saying they have to win out, and they were able to do so, beating a good Springfield and a good Beaver Creek team. They're playing their best football right now. Dublin Jerome, you can add that to the mix. I don't think that there is one, this is the most dominant team in this region. If you do have to say that, probably Middletown because they beat Princeton, but I don't even... Again, it's what Middletown team is going to show up. This region, 1 through 12, any one of these 12 teams can win this region. It's going to be a fun one to watch.
And yeah, the me backing you up on that argument, you take a look at all these teams. You have the best team. There's 2 teams at 8-2. Those are the best records of all these teams. The worst record of all the teams that made the playoffs. You got a ton of 5-5 teams that made the playoffs. And you talk about Fairmont, there was a lot of things that could have gone wrong for Fairmont last night that didn't. They were able to get a win, but they also got the minimum amount of points they could possibly get with their win over Beaver Creek. Fairmont, after their win against Beaver Creek, they were huge Marysville fans, and Marysville was able to get the win over Darby to end up making the playoffs themselves. But the situation for Fairmont was if Fairmont won and Marysville won, it didn't matter what happened to anything else. Fairmont would have been in the playoffs. So Fairmont was huge Marysville fans last night, and Marysville was able to get a very convincing win versus Darby. And you mentioned Springfield has to face off against Marysville, a very banged-up Springfield team. You take a look at Marysville, and it's one thing that Jimmie Bell talked about. We're going to have him on later on in the show. He talked about Marysville earlier on in the season. They are just a team that is built to withstand punishment and built to withstand a potential run in the playoffs. He talked about Marysville being built as a big, big team. So, and when it comes to big, I'm talking about size on the football field. So Marysville is a team at the 12 seed facing off against a beat-up Springfield team that we could see pull an upset. We saw Springfield get upset in the first round of the playoffs last year. It's totally possible to see it happen to Springfield, especially if they're as beat up as you mentioned. So Springfield facing off against Marysville, a Marysville team that needed to win against Darby to even have an opportunity to make the playoffs. They played dominant. They absolutely crushed Hilliard Darby after Hilliard Darby brought it back to a 14-14 game. Marysville, after it being tied back up at 14, they started off up 14-0, ended up being a 14-14 game, went on to win it 35-14. So Marysville was looking very dominant last night, and they've got a very winnable game against Springfield in their first round game. And then if they're able to win against Springfield, they've got a very winnable game against Springboro. So there's a lot that we talk about how chaotic Region 2 has been all season when it comes to teams making the playoffs. Well, I'll tell you what, it's not going to change in the first round or the second round or the third round of the playoffs. This Region 2, I see still being an absolutely chaotic region once the playoffs start.
Absolutely. It's going to be a fun region to watch. Again, looking at Marysville, tough schedule. Fairmont, they've had 5 losses, but it's been within 20 points combined. It's Region 2. We've been having our fun with it. We're not done. It's going to be a fun one in the 2025 OHSA postseason. That wraps up. Hey, we just got a first look at what the bracket should look like tomorrow. Again, it's unofficial, but it is as official as it can be. Again, off the Joe Idol website, and he is rarely ever wrong. Joe Idol, you're the man, the myth, the legend. Again, a huge shout out and blessings to you for everything that you do for the media folk and everybody else here in the state of Ohio. Time for a break. WPKO and Peak of Ohio TV's Ken Keller will be joining us on the flip side of this commercial break. That's all coming up next here on the TKDS Sports Network and our Friday night recap show.
When every second counts and every drop matters, you don't settle for ordinary. You power up with Power Mist Racing Fuels. Trusted by champions, engineered for victory. From drag strips to dirt tracks, Power Mist delivers explosive performance, cleaner burns, and unmatched horsepower. Nitro, alcohol, methanol.
A restaurant that only serves chicken fingers was one man's and a dog's dream. They focused on the basics, and all that hard work paid off. Because Cane's puts the dine in dynasty, the yum in triumphant, the feast in undefeasted. This is Raising Cane's, and I'm Kirk Herbstreit, and I'm looking forward to serving you one heck of a chicken finger meal. Now, what can I get you, champ?
I'll take the box combo.
Central State University is home.
We on the way. Yeah, it's my time. Who I'm gonna be when I'm in the limelight.
For God.
For Central.
For State. And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington as we welcome you back here to the TKDS Sports in our Friday night recap show. Just about 40 minutes left in our regular season shows. We will be shifting over to our playoff shows next week. What does that change? Well, absolutely nothing. We're still going to be live from 8 to 11 and a whole lot more right here on the TKDS Sports Network. We welcome in our good friend from Peak of Ohio TV and WPKO. That is Ken Keller. Ken, hopefully you hear us just fine, and thanks for joining us as always.
Yeah, I got you guys. Thank you so much. Good to be back.
So, Ken, we've made this a weekly appearance throughout the season, and we've really enjoyed having you on to talk about the OHC, the CBC area, Champaign and Logan County. And we have talked with you just as much as anybody else about those conferences, how conference titles are shaping up, how playoff seeding is shaping up. Can you kind of elaborate? And we just went over the entire playoff seeding on the show. Kind of elaborate what surprised you and what can you expect for some of the teams up in your region?
Yeah, the surprise for me, for Champaign, Logan County, it looks like with the projections stand true, we're just going to have one game on the air next week with the other teams getting a week one bye. Liberty Salem, as of now, looks like that they are in and will be on the road for week one. But Graham and Mechanicsburg and Indian Lake, the other schools that have made in our area that have made the playoffs, all will have a week one bye. So that surprised me a little bit. I didn't think Graham was going to get the first week bye, and they did end up sneaking into that number 4 seed. At least the projections hold true. We'll find out tomorrow, I suppose. But so that was a little surprising to me. Bell Fountain not making it. They didn't make it. Riverside, they had a chance to win and get in. They lost in a close one to Miami East. They did not get in. Urbana actually even had an outside chance, even with just 3 wins. They didn't make it. Benjamin Logan, there was a time last night that we thought Benjamin Logan was going to get in, but Clearview won and knocked Benjamin Logan out. So we had some close calls at the end of the night last night where we thought maybe we get a few more local teams in, but it looks like we'll have 4, and 3 of them will have week one byes, which that's certainly good representation. But all of our broadcast teams are going to be fighting over that one game next week that we get to go cover.
Well, Ken, we certainly hope that you get that game, but we're not biased whatsoever. But Ken, kind of talking about it, take us through some of that. Again, the Riverside Miami East game, that was a 14-10 win for Miami East. That clinched them a TRC division or conference title as well. Ben Logan, they were up early, and then they ended up slipping up. I'm sure that you were at your game last night, but I'm sure that you were paying close attention to some of those other games in the area. Kind of talk us through what went wrong for some of those games, for some of those teams late in the game to end up, unfortunately, eliminating themselves.
Well, the big one we were watching was Bell Fountain. If they would have beat Jonathan Alder on the road, they would have been in at 6-4. We talked in weeks past, Jonathan Alder had been, skidding a little bit, not playing up to what we were used to at the beginning of the season. I still say they were playing the hardest part of the schedule, and that was more it than anything. Well, Jonathan Alder took care of business and beat Bell Fountain pretty good last night, 42-7. That knocked Bell Fountain out. The game I called was Mechanicsburg at West Liberty Salem. Mechanicsburg was playing for an OHC North title, at least a share of it. And I believe they were going to get that week one bye regardless of what they did. That's what people were telling me, and that's what the projections were saying. But they took all the guesswork out of it. West Liberty Salem certainly was going to solidify their playoff hold with that game. So there was a lot of interest. Now, Mechanicsburg came out and scored 49 unanswered points against West Liberty Salem. Tigers came out their first drive, third play of the game, had a 50-yard touchdown pass. And then that was the only points that West Liberty Salem scored all night long. The Indians defense clamped down on West Liberty Salem, and the Indians rolled last night. Benjamin Logan, by the way, they did win last night. They actually handled Shawnee 40-13. but the teams around them that couldn't win, they did win, and that's what knocked Benjamin Logan out.
Ken, kind of talk to us. What game were you at last night covering, and talk us through how that one was.
Yeah, Mechanicsburg at West Liberty Salem. The Tigers, scored first on their third play of the game. Then Mechanicsburg completely shut them down after that, scoring 49 unanswered points. Conley Bogard threw 4 touchdown passes. He also ran a 39-yard touchdown run, so he accounted for 5 touchdowns last night. Denver Caudell, who's their fullback / running back, he's a big physical running back that doesn't catch a whole lot of passes. He caught 2 wheel route touchdown passes last night, and then 2 to Austin Haynes. He had 2 catches. They were both over 50 yards, and the big play was in play for Mechanicsburg last night. They handled West Liberty Salem, securing that week 1 bye, and the OHC North a share of that title.
Ken, let's talk about West Liberty Salem real quick. West Liberty Salem, they're not clinched yet, but as of now, there's a good chance that they will have that 12 seed. There's a couple of games today that could affect that could push them out of the playoffs entirely. But like we talked about here, there's a very good chance that West Liberty Salem is going to sneak in as that 12 seed. Beginning of the year, I don't think that many people particularly thought that this was going to be a team that was going to finish as a 12 seed and be fighting the day after they played their last game of the season to still hold on to that 12 seed.
Yeah, there were so many questions about West Liberty Salem beginning of the year. They graduated 18 seniors. Their coach stepped down after 12 years, so they had a new coach this year. They literally had new starters. I think of the 22 new starters, 18 or 19 of them were first-year starters this year. So many questions. They started a sophomore quarterback in Beckett Sullivan, who was trying to figure things out on the varsity level as he was going. And it took them a few weeks. They struggled the first 2 weeks. They played Jonathan Alder week 1. That's not an easy game. And then they played Benjamin Logan also. That was 2 tough games to open up the season, but the defense kept them in these games, and the defense has been solid all season long. I'll take last night out of it. I think Mechanicsburg was playing with an edge, and then Beckett Sullivan started to think, figure things out. Corbin Wallace became a bell cow, running back for West Liberty Salem. They started to go to Reese Oder at wide receiver, more the playmaker. The offense was becoming a little more dynamic. They went on a nice 4-game win streak to get themselves into the playoff picture. Had a really tough loss to Northeastern. They lost that game on the last-minute punt return for a touchdown. And so that was a real tough game for them to lose. That would have been a huge win for them, and we wouldn't even be guessing if they were going to make the playoffs had they held on to that win. But they lost it, and then, Triad, they beat Triad. That's not a whole lot of points, and then they got, beat pretty good by Mechanicsburg last night. So we're looking to see if they hang on to that 12th spot. That's where they're projected right now. But as far as what you were talking about before, where, knowing them locally, and no idea how good they would be, because like I said, it's an entirely new team, new coach, and a lot of young players are basically starting from scratch. I think people outside the counties, say, oh, that's West Liberty Salem. They go to the playoffs every year. They're really good. They went to the state semis last year. It shouldn't be a problem. In fact, that's not entirely accurate because of all the first-year starters that they had to do this year. So I'm actually pretty impressed that they're even in this situation where they still can make it to the playoffs. I think it's been by Coach Brad Jarzab in his first year at the helm.
Well, Ken, once again, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us here today. We always enjoy talking to you. And, hey, next time we talk to you, we're going to be at Week 11 of the postseason. Hard to believe that it's already this moment of the season.
Yeah, best time of the year. I called last night the most bittersweet week of the year because it's sweet because, so many important games and seedings for playoffs up for grabs. It's an exciting night, but certainly bitter because, it is week 10 of the season and we know the end is near. So we try and soak it in and enjoy every last minute that we have while we still have high school football.
Once again, that's Ken Keller from Peak of Ohio TV and WPKO. Ken, thanks for joining us.
Guys.
That is Ken Keller, our good friend with TKDS Sports. Before we get our good friend Jimmie Bell onto the show, let's go over some Columbus scores. Pickerington Central knocked off Reynoldsburg 35-14. Canal Winchester over Groveport Madison 28-21. Newark over Lancaster 17-16. Tejas Valley over Logan 34-0. That game, it was OHSA announced that Tejas Valley won it. That game was delayed and eventually called because there was an altercation that happened on the field. They suspended that game mid-game, and Tejas Valley with a 34-0 win. Westerville North over Dublin Scioto 16-7. Big Walnut over Westland 56-0. Westerville South beating Worthington Kilbourne 21-19. Villa Angela St. Joseph handles Delaware Hayes 48-17. Berlin over Olentangy 14-10. Marysville over Hilliard Darby 35-14. Jerome over Worthington 35-17. Olentangy Orange wins a dogfight against Olentangy Liberty. It's Liberty's first loss since week 3, 26-14. Upper Arlington beating Hilliard Davidson 31-0. Hilliard Bradley over Dublin Kaufman 29-3. And the last couple games, Pick North over Gahanna Lincoln, whopping 35-0. New Albany over Westerville Central, 28-6. Grove City beating Central Crossing, 63-3. Cincinnati College Prep will play Stivers today. St. Bernard Elmwood Place will play Laughlin today. St. Bernard Elmwood Place wins after a Laughlin forfeit. And then the top game that we have on Saturday, Aiken and Hughes with a lot of playoff implications riding on that. We're going to take a small break as Jimmie Bell will be joining us here on the flip side of this call. You're watching the Friday Night Recap Show powered by TKDS Sports.
In life, things aren't scripted.
If you're an athlete, we need people like you and translate those skills to officiating.
You can get a lot out of it.
It happens in every town, in every game.
We never have a perfect game, but the rewards always outweigh the negativities.
Gasoline blends. Whatever you race, we've got the fuel to ignite your edge. Power Mist Racing Fuels. Born to burn, built to win.
The year was 1907. The Cubs won the World Series and the Ford Model R hit the assembly line. While here in Ohio, school administrators came together to form the Ohio High School Athletic Association. One thing that hasn't changed since 1907 is the dedication of the OHSAA to education-based athletics in Ohio. School sports teach responsibility, sportsmanship, and life lessons that stay with students long after their playing days are over. The OHSAA seeks to prepare students not for the next level of sport, but for the next level of life.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season, it's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference, it's anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is coming this fall. Only on HBCU Go.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. Joining us now is our good friend Jimmie Bell. Jimmie Bell, a TKDS Sports analyst and common guest on this show to talk about the Columbus market as well. Jimmie, Week 10 is in the books. Hopefully you hear us just fine. Thanks again for taking time out of your Saturday to join us today.
Listen, man, absolutely. We started from week 1, and now we're here. We're gonna remix the Drake song a little bit. But man, how long of a season and how dope of a season has it been, man? And I haven't been all up in Columbus, Central Ohio football as much, but it seems like it's an incredible run, and some of that run may have a lot to do with a lot of the teams, with our quirky, sometimes unreasonable, ununderstandable point system with going to the 12N
the expansion, a lot more teams and programs understand that they have a viable opportunity, man, which made the season a whole lot more exciting probably than normal.
Jimmie, this season, as you mentioned, it's been more exciting than what we're used to seeing, and it's mainly because of that 12-team playoff that we just mentioned. Jimmie, kind of touching base on that, last night we had an incredible game to call. It was Worthington, Kilbourne, Westerville South. Westerville South jumped out in front early, and Kilbourne came back. They could not haul in the win. But we were talking through that game. At the time, South held on to the 6th seed. Kilbourne held on to the 8th seed. Winner will get a home playoff game without a doubt. Not only just the winner would get a home playoff game, South, if they won, they could have gotten a first-round bye. That's what happened. South currently right now is the 4 seed. They're still waiting to see that Massillon-Washington game that's going to be played today. Worthington Kilbourne will have to go on the road and play Walnut Ridge. That's going to be a 9 versus an 8 seed. So when you take a look at the playoff implications that's in Week 10, it's not just getting into the playoffs. It's, are you going to get a first-round bye? Are you going to be a road team? Are you going to be a home team? And I think that's just made it so much more exciting.
And listen, you talking about what just happened and transpired. We talked about this yesterday. I said some teams are going to say, I want to buy. The buy isn't going to be the thing for everybody. To just get in may be better for another team. Think about this. Worthington Kilbourne, who hasn't been dope for quite some time, right? They're perennially a little below average. This year they had an incredible, exciting year. You saw how they play. I told you that. I said, bro, they don't play like everybody else. They make big plays. They did that. Well, a team like them, they may not have wanted to buy, right? Check this out. They got more of an incredible equal game. It's on the road, but it's an incredible more equal game than they probably would have had. Who knows who they would have played in the other round and all of these other things. Now they get comparable Walnut Ridge team, which means that could ignite how they proceed in the playoffs. I love that.
Jimmie, when you take a look at some of the other teams in Columbus, there's a lot that's going on. Who are your top teams to keep an eye out for that can make a run to Canton?
Well, I'm going to tell you who's the hottest right now. And my man, Brent Branson, and I'm going to cut this clip for him because he's getting on my dang nerves, talking about Pick Central. And Pick Central is historically known, well, not historically, modernly known as one of the top teams in Ohio and in Central Ohio. Well, they have this quarterback who actually got hurt the first couple games of the season, and now he's back. And Pick Central has probably been what I would consider the hottest team in Central Ohio, and if not just Central Ohio, maybe the state. Part of that has to do with how they started and how they're ending. They gave it to Gahanna, who's full of athletes every year. Gahanna's probably one of the most inconsistent teams that you're going to find. But when they play, they're on top of it. Pick Central looks like one of those teams that is riding the momentum necessary to go into the playoffs and make a run.
Jimmie, and talking about some of those teams that can make a run as well, Columbus, we've talked about it. We think that this is probably out of the regions of Central Ohio, Southeast Ohio, Southwest Ohio, and then the Northern Ohio, Columbus has been the most competitive market this season.
Oh, man, 100%. You have a lot of incredible teams. You have some legacy teams. You have some new legacy teams. We can't forget about talking about the Belisari's clan over there at Bishop Watterson, right? This trying to make a mark in a three-peat. They look incredibly solid, right? They're well coached. And the thing is, even have necessarily a team of the best athletes. I know they're in a totally different division than what we normally talk about with the Division I, but there's some other legacy teams. Like we talked about Marysville making a run. We talked about Olentangy Liberty making a run, losing 30-something seniors from last year. Now they're back in the mix. You talk about Olentangy Orange, who's there's just a lot of competition in this Central Ohio area. And some of it's little different divisions playing against each other, but they're all trying to get their own crown, and they're all trying to get create their own path to the chip there in Canton. And it's just been incredible to watch these teams play from week to week.
Jimmie, and again, kind of talking on how this season has gone. Hard to believe that 10 weeks are already in the books and playoff time next week. Now, you have you were blessed enough to be able to go play at the next level at Ohio State University, winning a Rose Bowl there. Then you went and played in the NFL as well. But for those seniors that are entering the playoffs right now, that they are on a week-to-week basis left in their career, what's your message to them?
Listen, this is what it's all about. It's not over, right? The feeling of euphoria, the feeling of what does this mean when you were working out as a freshman, right, amongst feeling small amongst the big homies 4 years ago, going through winter, going through spring, going through summer, wondering if you're going to get your shot. You're doing summer conditioning for 3 to 4 years. And for these seniors, this is the pinnacle. Yeah, some guys play as freshmen, some guys play as sophomores, some guys play as junior, but that's not normal. The real journey of high school football is working your tail to where you have this incredible senior year and you're able to maximize your run. That's the key. Everybody can't win every game in the playoffs. That's very obvious. But what you do want to do, you want to be able to maximize your run. There's no greater feeling than winning or losing, knowing you left everything on that field. There's no worse feeling, losing, knowing that you could have gave a little bit more or something different. Lay it all on the line. You guys have worked curiously to create an identity for yourself, and that identity is what's going to carry you. That, even in the word, I'm a little spiritual, but it says, my people are successful because of their gift. Your gift is your identity, not the colors, not how big or fast another team is, not even necessarily who you're playing. Are you able to execute every single thing that you've been working to execute for this precipice moment? This is your time. This is the peak. And listen, we've seen it. I seen it last night with Marion Local. Out of nowhere, they continue their undefeated streak. It's a minute left. The other team kicks a field goal. It's 0-0. And what happens? They take a kickoff to the house, and they still have the longest winning streak. You got to believe, and you got to continue to fight to do everything that you've been taught and believe that you deserve everything that's in your heart and soul that you deserve. And that's when you're going to be if you lose, you'll be disappointed, but you're not going to be devastated. You can walk away with your head up, your shoulders out, and your head up, knowing that you left everything on that field.
Jimmie, final question for you. Of course, the Buckeyes are off today, so you have a free Saturday to yourself. Well, what are you going to do with yourself with the Buckeyes not playing today?
Well, I'm gonna act like I'm talking to you all day. How about that? No, I'm teasing. I have an agency. Me and my business partner Jamar Hill. I have an agency. We support individuals with autism and neurological challenges, and we also have a life coaching company that supports underserved communities. So every weekend, I'm embedded in the community, helping underserved communities, man. So I'm gonna just continue to do a little bit more of that. Actually, I can do it a lot less stress, because normally I'm bouncing back and forth from football to clients, football to clients. Now my clients today can have everything that I have, and I'm gonna watch a little football. Come on, man, you know that.
Well, Jimmie, once again, thanks for joining us. It's always a pleasure talking with you, and we know that we're looking forward to talking to you again here next Saturday.
Absolutely. Have a great broadcast today. Hey, guys, don't forget that Canton-McKinley-Massillon game is going to be a good one. It's going to be an incredible one. It's going to be a lot of fire and passion on that field, and it has a lot of Ohio high school implications. Tune into that thing. Absolutely. So, once again, that's our good friend and former Ohio State Buckeye, Jimmie Bell. Jimmie, thanks again. Appreciate you, fams. Jimmie Bell, we'll take a break. Coming up next, it is Game Picks. That's all coming up Friday Night Recap Show.
Central State University is home.
On the way. Yeah, it's my time. Who I'm gonna be when I'm in the limelight. Shining in the dark like I was a nightlight. It's my time, yeah. I went from the back to front, last to one. Future looking like magnanimous. We on the way.
For God.
For Central.
For State.
When life gets messy, make it sweet. Only Dirty Dough delivers maximum flavor from the inside-out layers, mix-ins, and gooey fillings. No filters, no fuss, just real cookies for real life. Every week, a rotating lineup of handcrafted flavors. Join the loyalty program, earn points on every purchase, redeem for free cookies, and get a cookie on your birthday. Dirty Dough, it's what's inside that counts.
This game just got bigger.
That's how we do it, fellas.
And better.
The energy is contagious.
Because we're back.
It's still a party here on HBCU Go.
And this season, it's about the grit.
Unbelievable.
The glory.
This conference, it's anybody's to take.
And the clash of champions.
Every game is our championship game.
The 2025 HBCU Go football season is coming this fall, only on HBCU Go.
Looking to elevate your brand with quality custom printing? Red Ball Specialty Printing in Springfield, Ohio. Family owned and dedicated to attention, quality, and service. We customize everything from shirts, drinkware, pens, awards, and more. Whether 50 pieces or 5,000, we deliver color crisp, branding brilliant. From promotional apparel to recognition awards, we're your one-stop for impactful merchandise. Visit rbspdesignschipley.com or call 937-215-0740 today. Red Ball, you think it, they ink it.
And now, to the TKDS studios and your host, Jackson and Matt for the Sports Now Update Show.
Jackson Lightcap alongside Matthew Pennington. Final 10 minutes or so left in this show. Once again, Central State will have their home finale later today at 1 o'clock against Miles. Miles comes to town. You can watch that on the Marauder Sports Network, maraudersports.tv. I'll have the play-by-play action alongside ex-NFL linebacker Curtis Grant and former defensive backs coach here at Central State, Corey Owens. Tiana Bryant will be doing our sideline reporting, so excited for that. That game, again, kicking off at 1. Matt, let's move into our game picks. We are into our postseason game picks. Let's look at the updated standings. First, with a 2-game lead, that is Kyle. Kyle, play-by-play announcer with TKDS, 44-14. I sit in second, tied with Jonn, 42-16. Tim and Matt both sit tied for fourth at 41-17. David and Gabe sit tied in sixth at 39-19. Kyle Funk is your regular season champion. The good news, or the bad news for him, the good news for the rest of us, is that there's no trophies given out for the regular season. We still have about 5 more weeks of this. So, this time, up for some game picks. Starting us off, New Bremen at Ansonia. Matt, I'll go ahead and take this one. Give me the Cardinals. Give me New Bremen. It's as simple as this. New Bremen's from the MAC, and I cannot go against the Midwest Athletic Conference, because how many times have we seen a MAC team make it as a lower seed in the playoffs, and then the next thing you know, they're in the Final Four. Next thing you know, they're in the Elite Eight. That has been a common theme for the MAC, and I think it's going to continue here. Ansonia's a great team. Ansonia's had a lot of deep postseason runs. They've had a lot of postseason success. But they have been susceptible to a couple of big-time losses to Tri-Village and Preble Shawnee. Granted, those are 2 tremendous teams. But I would even sit there and say New Bremen could be better than those 2 teams as well. Give me New Bremen by a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely, when it comes to picking teams at this point of the season, and once we start getting through all of our game picks, to me, this is like the most coin flip moment of the season. And the other thing I got to say as well, talking about Kyle being up in that top spot, the good thing for everybody is I don't think I personally have won a regular season championship when it comes to our game picks. And I'm the one that has the most to lose when it comes to the game pick segment, because I'm 4-time. I haven't lost the overall standings when it comes to game picks.
Let me cut you off here, Matt.
So,
I've been the regular season champion, so I would know that it does not matter.
I was going to say, I don't think there may have been one season where you and I were tied, and you and I were co-champions at the end of the regular season, but I don't think there's been a year where I have been the outright winner of the regular season title, and I'm fearing that I might not have this to say at the end of the season because Kyle has had my level of consistency week in and week out throughout this season. So that's what worries me. My normal regular consistency, Kyle has had that all season long. I've had a few hiccups here and there throughout the regular season that has put me down 3 games behind him. But going back to our game picks, I have to agree with you. I see a lot of potential with this Ansonia. I see a lot of potential with both these teams, with Ansonia and New Bremen when it comes to the playoffs. But Ansonia comes out of the WOAC, a conference that isn't as consistent when it comes playoff time and isn't as strong when it comes playoff time, as opposed to the team they've got to face in New Bremen when it comes to the conference that New Bremen comes from and the consistency that the MAC brings to the playoffs every single year. I mean, we're talking about Versailles not even making the playoffs, and that being a blessing to every team that's made it into the playoffs in Region 20, because that's how good the MAC conference is. So give me the Cardinals of New Bremen to take down Ansonia and cause more chaos and cause more havoc for things to come in Region 28.
Harrison hosting Turpin.
Give me Harrison in this one. It's once again one of those very close, very coin flip type matchups. There isn't really much of similar opponents for both Harrison and Turpin. There's only one team that has played both of them, and that is Loveland. Loveland lost to Turpin on the road 15-7 in week 5. No, it was week 5. Week 1, Loveland hosted Harrison, lost 34-14. I know I hate using that property, but when it comes down to these coin flip matchups, I feel like it's the only thing I can look at when it comes down to things. So give me the Wildcats of Harrison.
You know, Matt, I am going back and forth on this one because I very well could see Harrison win this. Turpin, I don't think, has been playing their best football lately. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games. But I'm going to go the conference here. I think the ECC is a tougher conference than what we've seen in the SWAC. And because of that, give me Turpin. I think that the Spartans are going to pull it out on the road. It's going to be a tough win. Give me Turpin. Up next, Goshen at Talawanda. I've already talked about it. I've already given my reasoning. Talawanda, I think that they are a team that can make a nice run in the postseason.
Yeah, you and I both already... I didn't even realize this was a game pick, but both you and I have already said who we thought was going to win this game, and I'm going to stick with what I said earlier. Give me the Brave. Both teams are incredible when it comes to running the football, but I think Lance Cantrell is going to give them that little bit of an edge. I think the defense is going to be whichever team has the better defense is going to be the team that comes out on top, and I think Talawanda's defense has performed a little bit better this season than Goshen's has.
Up next, Mason at Fairfield.
I hate that you gave me this one.
I can take it. I got my pick right here.
For me, it's whatever team's going to be home. Right now, it says Fairfield's going to be the home team. They won at home in overtime against Mason. So if Fairfield is the home team, give me the Indians. If Mason is the home team, give me the Comets. We talked about it being unofficial as to who's going to be the home team. So I'm going to go with Fairfield because they've already won. But if Mason ends up being the home team, I mean, I've got to go with the Comets. I think this is the biggest, out of all of our game picks, this is the biggest coin flip game, in my opinion, of all of them.
Give me Mason. Last time they played, Fairfield was home and they won by 1. It was 14-13. We've talked about it so many times on this show, how hard it is to beat the same team in a season twice. And I think that comes into play here. I think the Comets get the win because of that. Up next, Fairmont at Lebanon. Matt, I've been lucky enough to see Fairmont this season. I've been lucky enough to see Lebanon. If Lebanon wants to win this, they're going to have to win it offensively. They're going to have limited possessions. This offense that Lebanon has is impeccable. They are incredible. They can't turn over the football like they did last night against Whitten Woods, but Fairmont's defense has been a question mark this season. Because of that, that opens the door for Lebanon to come in and take over. They're an air raid team. They're going to throw all over Fairmont. There's not a doubt in my mind that Lebanon's not going to be putting up 20 points. But I will go ahead and say this. I don't think Lebanon can stop Fairmont's rushing attack. and you have an air raid attack that's not going to be stopped, a rushing attack that's not going to be stopped, I'm going to go with the team that controls the clock. Give me the Firebirds on the road.
Yeah, this is another coin flip because we talked about Fairmont. We had Fairmont versus Wayne be a game pick earlier on in the season, and we talked about how good the Wayne air raid attack has been so far throughout the entirety of this season. And we take a look at the final score of Fairmont versus Wayne. Wayne won at 21-18. So in a game that you and I both thought Fairmont didn't really stand too much of a chance, we thought that there was an opportunity. It was a close game, but we talked about how good Wayne's air raid has been against Fairmont, or against everybody. And Fairmont has struggled against air raid teams, and Fairmont kept it close. So with that, I'm gonna agree with you. I think Fairmont can get this game done on the road against Lebanon. Lebanon has shown struggles when it comes to the offense. They've also shown moments where it looks like nobody's going to be able to stop the Warriors' offense. But for me, Fairmont's defense, we've had questions about it, especially against air raid teams, and they've proven to hold their own as a whole. Not just the defense, but what the offense is able to do in response of how the defense plays. So give me the Fairmont Firebirds over the Lebanon Warriors.
Matt, final minute, so we got to make this quick. Marysville at Springfield.
I want to flip a coin again for this one. I don't know who's going to win it.
I'm going Marysville. I'm going the 12 over the 5. I'm going the 12 over the 5. If Springfield is banged up, Marysville is bigger. Marysville is coming from a Columbus region where they've played a tougher schedule. I think that they pull the upset.
Now it's going to sound like I'm copying you, especially with the fact that I was saying I was up in the air. But
hey,
I think Marysville can get this game done. I was going back and forth between both teams. Like I said, to me, this is another one of those coin flips. But if Springfield is as banged up as we've heard after last night as they could potentially be, Marysville's coming off of a must-win to make it and then have some help. They needed to win against Darby last night to make it into the playoffs. Springfield, they were already locked in. There was no chances of them, if they lost last night, to be knocked out. Marysville needed to win. They've got the momentum on their side, so give me the Monarchs over the Wildcats. I just hate that it now looks like I'm copying you.
I jumped in front of you. That'll take us to the end of our show. Regular season is done. Thanks again for joining us here on the TKDS Sports Network. Watch throughout the rest of the day. Miles Central State kicks off 1 o'clock. We're going to prep for that upstairs as we'll talk to you in week 11.